Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of What If Naruto Had Political Marriage with Temari. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 17. Countdown to the Big Day. Sakura was with her team waiting for Kakashi to show up as usual, although there was something different going on. She had noticed that Naruto and Temari were off to the side talking. This wasn't unusual, but she did notice they seemed closer than before. Plus she noticed the additions to the end of their names they were using lately. She couldn't help but smile at them and was happy for the two of them. When this first started she had been a little worried. Naruto looked so depressed. Now however things were different and it was good that both found some happiness in each other. It was also nice to have another girl on the team. She couldn't count the number of times she wished Ino or some other girl was around to talk to. There were just some things you couldn't talk about with boys. Over the time she had been on her team, Sakura had formed a friendship with the older girl and a respect for her as well. She was an amazing ninja for her age and it only showed just how much farther she needed to go. She took her training a lot more seriously now and with Temari's help had improved. In the past week she and Temari started to hang out a bit and with the other girls. It was nice that Temari was starting to fit in with them all. Sakura was also excited at being the maid of honor for the wedding. She was all giddy and excited about it. She already had to plan out her dress and hair for it all and she was looking forward to it. It was another 30 minutes before Kakashi finally showed up, but something seemed off with him and it was Sakura that noticed it first. "Kakashi-sensei, are you limping?" Sakura asked him as everyone took notice of it now. Kakashi's sweat dropped at the question. He had hoped that no one would notice. He and Anko had spent a lot of time yesterday getting rid of apparently a lot of tension out of their systems. The last thing he needed was for them to try and find out why he had pulled that muscle. He never knew that Anko was so flexible, but that one position had nearly killed them. He knew that he had to quickly think of an excuse. Now believe it or not he could lie like the best of them when he needed to. It was just that he hadn't really cared to cover up why he was late at times. It was more fun to make up blatant lies. Plus it made people think that he was a very bad lying, so when he actually made good lies people would believe them. "Well, yesterday I was getting in some training and I think I went a bit overboard," Kakashi told them with a straight face. "Training?" Naruto asked him. "Of course," he said to the boy. "Even a Jonin needs to keep training Naruto, or else we run the risk of our skills degrading. Where do you think I go after our team is done for the day?" Naruto thought about that. I guess that makes sense. Kakashi mentally sighed. He really didn't want them to know the real reason he pulled that muscle. He was also glad that the bulk of his body was covered up. Anko had put a few scratches and love bites as well. Then again she didn't exactly leave his place unmarked as well. When she left she said something about finding something to wear around her neck for the next day. Training went on as usual. Kakashi would have them do certain exercises and drill, then comment and show how to improve them. They worked on team movements and how to coordinate attacks in battle. Then where was the personal training session? He helped out with their fighting skills, showing what they were doing wrong and offering advice here and there. It was a light training day today since he couldn't really move all that much. By the end of it he dismissed them all, but he had to pull Sasuke aside for a moment. "Sasuke, I would like to talk to you for a moment," Kakashi said to the last Uchiha in the village. "All right," the young boy said as the two moved off to the side. "I've been working on a new seal that should help to nullify the curse mark on your neck. The first seal I put on there was the best I could come up with, but I'm not a seals master. The new one I made with the help of two others I believe will ensure that it won't interfere with you at all," Kakashi told him. He knew that the curse mark could hinder someone's progress as a ninja if they weren't with Orochimaru, that is. Anko herself had to learn how to get where she was by stepping around the effects of her curse mark. He also wanted to make sure that Sasuke didn't take the offer of power that the mark offered, because of the price for that power. The new seal would ensure that a person couldn't really use the mark unless they actually wanted to, instead of just acting out during strong emotional times. Sasuke however didn't like this idea. He had been experimenting with the curse mark on his own and so far he was making some slow progress. He wasn't sure what it did, but it seemed to make his chakra more powerful and potent. He would need this power one day and he didn't want to give it up. Thanks, but I don't need it, Sasuke told him. Kakashi blinked a few times. Sasuke, that curse mark can act up at any time. But only if I want it. You said so yourself that the current seal that's on it. Well, yes, I did say that. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head. But it still could act up in moments of great emotional strain. I'm willing to take that risk, Sasuke told him. Kakashi got a bit more serious now. Sasuke, that mark is dangerous. Are you willing to put your team in danger because of it? Sasuke knew he had to think of something fast to convince him to drop this. Are you trying to force this seal on me, like how Orochimaru forced this mark on me? Kakashi paused for a moment at that. He wanted to come up with a counter-argument, but the boy was right. He couldn't just force him to go through with it. The first seal had been voluntary, but he wasn't going to stoop to Orochimaru's level. He had seen the kind of thing thinking did to others, even if it was for good, but that was a slippery slope. He had hoped that he would have gone through with it. But it would seem that the boy was determined against this for some strange reason. It was a bit suspicious, to tell the truth. He might have to keep a closer watch on the boy though because of this. Fine, then I won't force this, but it better not become an issue, because I can still go to the Hokage about this and she can force this kind of action if it becomes a problem. It won't, Sasuke said as he walked off. Kakashi sighed, all that work and the boy just brushes it off. If it wasn't for what led to this new thing between him and Anko, he would have said all that time and effort had been put to waste. Well, at least he had that coming out of all of that work, and that was something he found he was glad for. Suna. Gaara was overlooking the new recruits for Suna. With their diminished manpower, they needed more ninja than ever. As one of the larger ninja villages, they needed to keep their strength up or risk other countries invading and taking power. Although things had been different since the failed invasion, some things still stayed the same. People were still afraid of him, although now it seemed a bit lesser than normal, but still he knew it would take time for them to see he had changed. But still, as one of the more experienced ninja, he was to help train the new recruits to pass their genin testing. With so many ninja lost, they had to promote more students to genin faster to make up for the losses. As he watched the weapons training, he couldn't help but think of the new person they had to replace Temari. Matsuri, a young girl who had just passed her genin exam, was now on his team. He knew that the only reason she was on the team was that because no one else wanted to work with him. It seemed a bit odd how the girl didn't show any fear towards him. Thinking back on it, the first time they had met was when he was teaching a weapons class. The girl had been afraid to use any bladed weapons. Gaara was the only one to go up to her and explain how the weapons she chose were not for her, how someone thought that picking up a warhammer that was twice your weight was a good idea. He couldn't fathom. But then something had happened. A group in Suna that was opposed to his existence had tried to assassinate him. Gaara thought that with his father's death those would have stopped. Apparently it had been some group that his father left orders that if he had died, then they were to kill Gaara at any cost. One of them had seen him talking to Matsuri and had actually kidnapped her in an effort to lure him into a trap. The old Gaara wouldn't have done a thing, but Matsuri was the first person to reach out to him without fear. At the time she had only been a student, but as he spent time with her and training her, he found that she became important. He didn't have many friends and he considered her a friend. The group had set up a sealing trap for him in the desert. He had to admit that he hadn't been prepared for it. It had been a simple trap that froze sand in its place by using several seals hidden in the sand. Apparently it had been made with him in mind. Without his sand he had found himself defenseless for the first time in his life. But Matsuri had managed to slip out of her bonds and started to fight with the rogue ninja. She managed to destroy one of the seals before being injured, but it was enough to get his sand back. That day only Gaara and Matsuri made it back to the village, and he was sure that no one would find the bodies of those men. The desert had a way of keeping things buried in its sands for all time. But soon after that she had passed her testing and had been assigned to his team. Gaara was unused to feeling happy, but he was happy to have her with them now. She was a bit shy, but as his brother said, she makes things interesting. Although she did help to fill the void in their team, she didn't fill the void of his sister. Gaara found that he missed Temari more than he thought he would. Ever since he started to care about others, he found more new feelings would show up and apparently new types of pain. She wrote to them, of course, and they wrote back. Well, Konkuro wrote back, he just said a few things for him to write down in the letters. So how are the newbies? Konkuro asked as he walked up to his brother. Adequate. Don't hold back, let me know how you really feel with that kind of praise. The puppet user smirked. In the time Temari left, he had started to get closer to his kid brother. Sure, he could be downright scary as hell at times, but he wasn't that old murder anyone on sight like he used to be. He was downright friendly. Well, friendly was as good a term as he could use with Gaara. Gaara fixed him with a stare and he backed off a bit, knowing the warning look of his little brother. Well, I got a letter from Temari today, he said to him. Things seem to be going well, in fact I think she's starting to like that kid. Gaara gave a slight movement of his head at that, although on the outside he didn't seem to care, on the inside he was smiling. He knew that Naruto was like himself, and if he could find happiness then there was hope for him as well. Plus the fact that his older sister was beginning to be happy was also good. At any rate, we were told the date of the wedding and when to show up, his brother went on. She also said to bring Baki-sensei along, and if she wants the new girl can come as well. She has a name, Gaara told him. Yeah, I know, but she's got a long way to go to get to Temari's level. Can't believe I'm admitting to this, but our sister was pretty good. Now that she's gone, the team is a bit off. Matsuri will fill the void, just give her time and I think she should come with us. Konkuro couldn't help but smirk. If he didn't know any better, he swore his little brother was growing a little sweet on the girl. Then again, she was the first and only girl not to flinch when Gaara looked at them. Hell, the girl actually admired his little brother, and by the way she blushed a few times, maybe more than just admired. He had to stop himself from snickering. He had told Temari about this and his thoughts that there was something more going on. Temari was interested in this for the same reasons, plus she wanted to meet the girl. That was why he brought up bringing Matsuri along. If he invited her, then Gaara might think he was up to something, which he was, of course. Now it seemed that Gaara would want her to come, so he could sit back and watch. Gaara-san. Konkuro-san. Speaking of said girl, Konkuro thought as he saw the young girl run up to them. She had on more traditional Suna gear since she made genin. Mostly light clothing and light chest armor, with gauntlets and shin protectors all in dark gray type of colors. Her short brown hair framed her face nicely and he thought that you could say she was cute. But she was a little too young and too shy for his tastes. Hey, what's up? The puppet user asked. Baki-sensei said that we have a mission tomorrow in country of Fang, so we're supposed to get the right supplies for it. Matsuri said to them. Fang. Man, I hope it's not another recon mission against Beast, that's getting old already. Konkuro knew of the tensions between the two smaller nations. Sure, it gave other ninja villages some nice income and their village did need the money, but they were also boring. Unless they came upon a team hired by the other country, it was the only thing to look forward to. Thank you for telling us, Gaara said to her, failing to notice the slight blush on her cheeks when he talked to her. It wasn't a problem, Gaara-san, Matsuri stammered a little. She couldn't help it. Whenever she was in his presence she felt her stomach had butterflies in it. Ever since that day he first came up to her she had strange feelings, and the only seemed to get worse as the more time she spent with him. She heard all the stories about him, but she couldn't see him as a monster. In fact, he looked lonely to her. He always stood alone, like he was apart from the world. It made her a little sad to think that and how he must feel at times. Konkuro noticed how the girl was staring at Gaara and resisted giving off a small laugh. The girl had something for him that he was sure of. Then he thought of the perfect opportunity to test something out. So Gaara, don't you have something to tell her as well? Konkuro said. Gaara looked at him before looking at the confused girl. You're invited to my sister's wedding, you'll be coming with us when we leave. You want me to come with you to your sister's wedding? She asked, shocked by it. Gaara just nodded and the girl wasn't sure what to think at first, as this was very surprising to the young girl. She did feel touched that he would want her to go with them for such a big moment. She had never met Temari personally, so she was looking forward to it. Oh no, I don't have anything to wear for a wedding. The young girl knew this was a big affair and looking like some low-class civilian wouldn't do at all. Don't worry, it's still a bit off, Konkuro told her. We can help you out when we get back, we all need to get proper things to wear to this anyway. Besides, he knew that Temari would kill them if they showed up in just their regular ninja clothing for this. He knew that she secretly wanted a grand wedding since she was a kid, thanks to reading her diary once, so they had better get some decent clothing for it. He mentally grinned as he thought that when they did get back from their new mission, he would plan on disappearing and letting Gaara and Matsuri along when she was trying on a dress. Girls like a second opinion on these things, and he was sure he could set this up. Besides, it was just too much fun messing with the two of them, how she got all embarrassed and how Gaara looked confused because of it. One of these days he might have to pull Gaara aside and explain why she blushed and stammered at times, but not anytime soon. When he had run out of fun, then he might do that, but for now he was going to sit back and enjoy the show. It was a shame Temari was missing all the fun. Konoha. Time passed quickly for everyone. The village was coming along nicely with the repairs, but still a while off completion. But now there was another matter that people were talking about. That was the upcoming wedding of Naruto and the former Suna nin Temari. Already the wedding would be taken on the top of the Hokage tower along with the reception. Mainly due to the fact it was so large, it also had good security, but it was also because most of the good places to hold it were still under repairs. Still, Tsunade was actually starting to have some fun. Since Naruto and Temari were getting along very well, she hoped that things would work out great for them. Plus, there was something about weddings that she liked, maybe due to the fact she knew she was too old for one, but still it would be nice to see Naruto happy for once. Already the guest list had been made out. Suna would send their representatives and Temari's team would be there. The heads of all the clans would show up with some guests. Naruto's friends and teammates were also there, as were the elders of the council. All in all, it was going to be a major event for the village. There hadn't been a marriage of this nature in the village before, even though the tradition did go back before the rise of the ninja villages. But still, there were a few more things that they needed to get done. She looked at the clock on the wall, and Temari and Naruto should be arriving in her office soon. She gave them instructions to show up for today to make the final preparations. So she had a little time to relax for a bit. When she agreed to do this job, she had an idea of what to expect. But the reality of it all was something more than what she thought. There was the mountain of paperwork, then dealing with council members, planning out missions, and there was this whole wedding thing. At first she had been worried this wouldn't work out too well. After all, she knew that Naruto used to have that crush on another teammate, but it would seem that things were going well enough, thankfully. I wonder if Hokages get to take vacations, she muttered. Well, I know a nice little spot with a hot springs if you're interested. Tsunade's peaceful moment was ruined by a certain white-haired pervert that was currently sitting on her window. She glared at him, hating it when he did that. You would try to take me to one of her perverted spots to try and see me naked again. Didn't you learn your lesson that last time you tried that? Jiraiya paled a bit, remembering that day. He had been peeking through a hole and she had just rose out of the water. Her backside was just as good as the front. That is, until he made a noise against the wall and she noticed the hole. The resulting punch that she threw went right through the hull and into his face. That had stunned him enough for her to march over and given him one of the worst beatings of his life. But oddly enough, he'd do it again if he could get enough distance between them. One had only to just look at Tsunade to understand those reasons. Well, I was just trying to be nice. You looked a little stressed, he said, trying to get the conversation off him. You try this job for a while, she muttered as she sighed. Why do you think I turned it down? He grinned at her. Besides that fact, I'm busy with my spy network. I knew the kind of job this was, and I also knew I wasn't the right person for it. I really should have thought it through, she sighed as she rubbed her temples. You need to learn how to relax. I would think a medic like yourself would know better than that, he stated. Trying to find the time to relax is hard enough, so when I do, I keep thinking about work. You need something to do to take your mind off your work. How do you think Sensei got through years of this? I'm not reading your perverted books or taking up peeping, she told him flatly. Not suggesting that, he said in a more serious tone. You know, I know a few things that I could try to help out. Tsunade shot him an angry glare. Did the man not know when to stop? You'd think that putting him into a near coma once would have made her point. It just seemed that since the first day he hadn't let up with flirting with her or other things of that nature. Now hear me out, Heim, he said, holding his hands up in defense. What if I promise no perverted touching on my part? I mean, if I tried something I would be easy reach with your fist, and I promise this will work out. Tsunade continued to glare at him as she thought about it, but honestly at this point she could use anything and it would be very easy to pummel him if he tried anything truly perverted. Fine, but you try anything and I won't heal you after it. That's fair. Now stand up and cross your arms over your chest. No, really, this is how it works. He said, seeing the look he got. She did it and he got behind her. He wrapped his arms around her and just before she could yell he leaned back and the sound of cracking were heard. Tsunade moaned as she felt her entire spine loosen up as he gently placed her back on the ground. Okay, that feels a bit better. Now the next part is for you to sit down, he said. She did so and felt his hands on her shoulders. She was about to protest, but the back thing worked. She tried not to enjoy it, but it would seem that he was in fact very good at this. She could feel the stress in her shoulders and back easing up after a few minutes. Geez, you weren't kidding about the stress, Jiraiya said as he found knots of stress all over her. You really could use a vacation. Like to, but too much to do, she sighed. You really do need a hobby or something, maybe go and treat yourself now and then. Hell, go get a back massage since you could use it. But honestly, you'll put yourself into an early grave and you know no one wants that. Tsunade only groaned when he got rid of a bad knot that even she didn't know she had. Maybe she should try and find some kind of stress relief. After all, she wasn't young anymore. Despite her looks, she needed to take better care of herself. There was a sudden knock on the door and she quickly made him take her hands off her. She couldn't let anyone see she had been enjoying that. Well, I'll leave you to it, Jiraiya smiled. I got a few things to take care of, but if you really do need any more of that, I'll be willing to any time. I'm sure you would, she said in a neutral tone, making sure he was gone out the window before she called in whoever was at the door. She wasn't surprised to see Naruto and Temari, but she did smile at how they were holding hands as they entered. Later, Temari was resting against one of the larger trees in the backyard of her home. It had been a long day today. After training, both she and Naruto were called up to the Hokage's office to go over the final details of the wedding. They had to go over the vows which Temari insisted to be their own, go over what they needed to do and what was ready. Naruto tried his best, but she took pity on him and let him run messages to various places for them. She knew that Naruto hated to sit still for long periods of time anyway, and this would put all that energy to good use. By the end of it all, both of them were tired. Temari was more mentally tired than physical, but both of them were glad to get to their home. They ate lunch outside today since it was such a nice day under the tree they were both under. Naruto had fallen asleep and his head was resting on her lap. She didn't mind at all. In face, her hand hadn't stopped running through his golden hair. It amazed her by the intensity of the color of his hair. She was a blonde too, but Naruto's color was like the sun. She also found his hair soft, despite how it stuck out all over the place. She even lightly traced the lines on his cheeks, and she smiled when she saw him sigh and smile a bit in his sleep. Temari had to admit that he looked very cute like this. It was strange how things had changed. The first day she met him, she didn't think much of him. Then she noticed him a bit when he defeated that Neji boy in a total upset victory. Fear was next when she saw how he fought her youngest brother and had been the first and only person in history to defeat Gaara. When she came back to this village, she was scared that she was going to marry him, but as she got to know him, her feelings changed. She wasn't sure when she started to like him, but she did. In fact, she did care for him a lot more than she ever thought she would when all this started. As she ran her hands through his hair, she could suddenly see herself doing this for years. Looking up at the home, she could almost see her future here. There was Naruto, although taller in her mind, both of them older of course, with them watching two children playing. She wanted at least one boy and one girl in her life. If they ever had more, well, they would talk about that later. The ex-Suna Nin found herself smiling at the thought of her future here for the first time. This was a nice place to raise children and they would have a better change for a decent childhood than either she or Naruto had. There would be no pressure to be the perfect Kage's kid, like she had been. When Naruto did become Hokage, and she came to think he could actually do it one day, she wouldn't force her children to behave like her father had forced her. And knowing Naruto, he would ensure their children would be happy. He had struggled for happiness as a child and she knew that he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he let his own kids feel that kind of sadness in life. In fact, she had a very good feeling that Naruto would be a great father. He would love their children like they were the most precious things in the world. That would be a lot better than her own father had been as she thought about it. There were a lot of things they would do differently, but she wasn't ready for children just yet. Maybe in a few years things would be different. At the moment she just wanted to enjoy this moment. It was nice just resting like this. After they were married she was thinking of them sharing a room. It was only fair and there was a small part of her that liked the idea of him next to her. Of course there were other reasons as well. She was still a young woman and lately she had been thinking about the more adult things they could get up to. Lately he had been very good at the physical stuff with their relationship. She wasn't sure how though. Maybe it was a natural talent as he did have the ability to suddenly get better at certain things or improve in leaps. Well, whatever the reason, she wasn't planning on stopping it, she was enjoying it too much. Although they never went too far, lately she had wanted to go a bit further but was unsure of herself. They were both technically young, but they were legal adults as soon as they became ninja. They went out on missions where they could be killed, tortured or a number of things. Hell, she had already killed in her life while on missions and had seen Gaara kill countless times. If someone was old enough for that, then sex shouldn't really be an issue. Maybe she was just nervous. After all, Naruto was the only boy that she had opened her heart up to and she wanted that time to be perfect. She smiled down at him again. Sure, he was a little rough around the edges, a bit of an idiot at times, loud, liked ramen and orange way too much. But he had the biggest heart in the world. He never gave up, he was never boring and she could trust him with anything. Maybe she was falling in love with the boy, with both the good and the bad that came with it. Soon they would be married and he would all be hers, and to be truthful she was starting to like the idea of him being just for her. She also knew that she would be for him as well. Naruto finally stirred as he slowly woke up to see Temari smiling down at him. He felt really nice where he was. It was comfortable as he looked up at the pretty girl smiling down at him. He couldn't help but smile back, and this was one of his true smiles, not the large goofy ones but a real one. Did I fall asleep? Yeah, don't worry, it's been a long day, Temari told him, gently running her hands through his hair. He gave a soft moan. That feels nice, Temari-chan. She was glad to hear it. After all, it was nice for her as well. She heard his stomach growl and she nearly laughed at the embarrassed look on his face. I guess that means it's time to eat then. Of course her own stomach chose to do the same and Naruto could only grin up at her blushing face. Guess that makes two of us, huh? Shut up, she said, still blushing in embarrassment. Come on, I'll make it up to you after dinner, he said. She gave him a sidelong glance. And how do you plan on doing that? Naruto only grinned at her and she felt her mouth twitch in a smile, getting the feeling she would know exactly what he was planning on doing. Chapter 18. Last Day of Freedom. Temari was excited because her brothers and old teacher were coming today. They were supposed to have been here earlier but a storm made them stop for a day. She had been worried they would have actually missed the wedding. It was hard for her to think that in a few short days she would be married and her name would be Temari Uzumaki. Although she didn't mind taking his last name, plus after getting a few days used to it, it sounded nice to her. It rolled off the tongue, plus it seemed to make Naruto happy that she was going to take his name. Maybe because it would mean he wouldn't be the only Uzumaki in the village anymore, a sign that he wasn't alone, that he had family, or just all of those reasons. At any rate, she was waiting at the main gate with Naruto as they waited for her old team to arrive. She was looking forward to meeting this new girl that they had. From the letters it seemed that she not only wasn't afraid of her brother but she might actually like him. That was a strange notion to get over the first time she read that. At first she had assumed that her brother was just being an idiot, but with more letters she was beginning to think maybe there was hope for her baby brother. He seemed to have grown more as a person since she had left, and she was looking forward to seeing it. Don't worry, it shouldn't be long. Naruto smiled up at her. What makes you think I'm anxious to see them? She asked him neutrally. His smile just got bigger. Because family is important and I know you miss them. I know I would if I was away from my family. Temari noticed the slight sad look in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She felt a stab of sadness in her. After all this time she had seen the real Naruto, the one that was behind the mask of false smiles and laughter. He acted like things didn't bother him. Maybe it was just a defense mechanism he had grown into over time, but he couldn't hide it from her anymore. She took his hand and he looked up in surprise as her warm smile. Just remember that you are part of a family now, she said gently to him. She noticed a small smile on his face. This was the ones he used when he was truly happy. It didn't take long until figures in the distance appeared, and as they got closer she could see her brothers, her old sensei, and a younger girl that had to be Matsuri. When they got close enough, Kankuro smiled as he raised a hand in greeting. Hey sis, how have you been? Temari smiled broadly and happily to see them again. She had missed them a lot and it just felt good to see them in the flesh after all this time. I'm doing good here. I hope you have been staying out of trouble without me around. Of course. Gaara gave him a look. Then what was that foolishness that you caused on the last mission? Gaara. Kankuro said in shock and surprise that the boy would bring that up. Then he noticed Temari giving him the look. He hated the look. It was the look that a big sister gave to her younger siblings, and he knew that he would get an earful if she learned of the accident that happened. It wasn't his fault he got into that fight. The guy had said something about his puppet and he felt the need to defend him. So he quickly pulled the young girl to his left in front of him as she gave a slight surprised little squeal at being manhandled without warning. Hey, say hello to Matsuri here. She isn't much now but she's getting there. Nice to meet you, Temari-san. The younger girl bowed to the oldest of the siblings. She had never met Temari in person, and although she had heard stories, it didn't do the blonde girl justice. Just by looking at her, Matsuri could tell that Temari wasn't your average kunoichi. She radiated confidence, strength and intelligence, all things that was a bit inspiring and intimidating to her. It was now Naruto's turn to say something, seeing the girl. Oh, is this the girl that you said had a ow? Temari had given Naruto a slight whack to the back of the head, giving him a warning look. He knew about the letters and he had been about to say how the girl was supposed to have a crush on Gaara. Apparently Temari would have to try and train Naruto intact later. Naruto got the message as he rubbed the back of his head. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you too, Uzumaki-san. The girl said politely. She had heard of Naruto. In fact, much of her village knew of him already. When it was told who Temari was to marry, it got people interested. Then when the information that he was the only one to defeat Gaara came out later, it only added to the mystery. Although he seemed very nice, she was a little confused. He didn't look that strong, or at least strong enough to defeat Gaara. Naruto blinked a bit at being addressed so formally. He felt a little embarrassed as he gave her a huge smile. Oh, you don't have to call me that. Just Naruto will do, you know. So Gaara, how have you been? Doing better. I don't kill as many people now. The boy said in his usual monotone voice. Everyone's sweat dropped at that, not sure if he was making a joke or being serious. Ah well, good to hear, Naruto said nervously. Have you been treating my sister well? The redhead asked. Huh, yeah, why? The blonde blinked. Good. I have no reason to harm you then, Gaara told him. Naruto suddenly had a vision of Temari going off crying to Gaara about him being mean to her and Gaara burying him in a ton of sand. Naruto shivered as he broke out of the daydream and really hoped that he never did anything to Temari. Anyways, let's get you all settled, Temari told them. We don't have much room for everyone, so we set you all up at one of the hotels. That will be fine, Baki said as they walked on. I'm hoping that I can see what kind of progress you've made in the Leaf Village since you've come here. Kakashi Hatake is a legend already, and it will be interesting to see the man in person. Don't get your hopes up on your expectations of the man, Temari thought sourly to herself. Jiraiya. Jiraiya was a man on a mission, and that mission was to make sure that this was a night that Naruto or anyone would never forget. The only thing was that he had to find that Iruka fellow. Naruto had told the old man who he picked for a best man, and although the old sage would have loved to have been asked, he knew that Naruto had a stronger bond with the young Chunin. Now however he wanted to ensure that his apprentice got the party of a lifetime. Getting married at such a young age before he got to know all the thrills life had, meaning women, was a sad thing. Although he was getting married to that blonde girl and she was a looker. He grinned perversely as he thought of the fun that boy was going to have on his wedding night. He had already scouted for possible peeping positions. It wasn't perverted, he was just ensuring his student put his teachings on how to pleasure a woman to good use. At least that's what he planned to say if he was caught and stuck with it. Besides, he needed a love scene with the two main characters of his new book, and what better time than a wedding night? Okay, sure, they were a little too young for his taste. He preferred older women, but he was an artist and he would do almost anything for his art. He also chuckled at how Tsunade lately had seemed to have got addicted to his little stress relief program. He added in teas and a few other things so she wouldn't think him a complete pervert, but those times he managed to work those knots out of her shoulders were times he cherished. Although many thought his feelings for Tsunade were just lust, and with a body like that who wouldn't feel that, but the truth was he had been in love with her at first sight. He still remembered how when he first met her he thought she was the most amazing girl he had ever met. Of course his usual lines didn't work on her, that only got him more interested in her. Why else hadn't he settled down after all this time? The fact was he had been in love with her. But it wasn't all good. When her brother had died he tried to be there for her, but then she went into the arms of another man. At first he hated Dan with a passion but never showed it, but he saw how happy he made her, so he left them alone. So broken-hearted he tried to bury his feelings and go into his works. Thankfully Minato came along at that point and he could focus on that boy. When Dan had died he hated to see how it broke her heart. He tried to comfort her, but she had put up a wall around her and he couldn't get through. For decease he longed for her, but she kept that wall up, that is until Naruto arrived and somehow broke that wall down. He hadn't seen Tsunade this happy in decades and he was thankful for the boy. Now it looked like he might have a chance to make up all the time, but he wouldn't push things. Despite how she was very fragile inside with certain things. He also didn't want to overstep things, but if they ever progressed then maybe after all this time she would open her heart up to him. But he was prepared for rejection. After all this time he knew things didn't always work out for the best. It was then that he found Iruka. He grinned as he walked over to the younger man. Hello there. You're Iruka, right? My apprentice's old teacher. Iruka looked over the white-haired man and instantly knew who he was. After all, he had a teacher and there was a whole chapter in Konoha history about the legendary 3. Jiraiya-sama. He smirked at the honorific, as this might be easier than he thought. I understand it that you're my apprentice's best man, so what have you got in store for his pre-wedding party? Iruka hadn't really thought about it. I thought that Naruto was too young for a bachelor party, if that is what you're getting at. Jiraiya made a disgruntled face. Well, that won't do at all. Besides, who said what kind of party? He should at least get together with his friends to celebrate, right? I know that Tsunade will be doing the same with Temari. Iruka felt worried now. First, Jiraiya seemed to be disappointed in him, which Iruka felt at himself now as well. He hadn't really thought about this. He never been a best man before, so he didn't know what to do. How could he possibly get everything together in such a short time? Jiraiya saw the worried look and he had to fight himself from smirking. This was going to be too easy. Look, I already got a spot reserved. I came to see if you wanted to use it, but if you're in such a bind, all you got to do is gather up those male friends of Naruto. Then bring them to this address at the time on it. He handed him a piece of paper which the other man looked thankful to get. The kid should go out with a celebration with getting married, don't you think? Of course. I'm sorry about this, I had no idea about any of this. Iruka said a little down. He was glad that Jiraiya had set things up. If only he knew the man on a more personal level, he might have suspected that the old man was up to something. Well, he was going to find out later that night just how crafty the old ninja could be. That night, Temari and Naruto were in their living room talking about how things would go at the wedding. Both were a little nervous, more so with Naruto. He was worried that he might mess things up. They already had a few rehearsals and he managed to get through it finally, but he was still nervous. Just then there was a knock at the door. Naruto looked on confused as he wasn't really expecting anyone, so he got up and went to the front door and opened it. Get him! A voice yelled and suddenly several people jumped Naruto. What the hell? Naruto yelled, feeling himself getting tied up. What is going on? Temari shouted, standing up from her place on the couch seeing her future husband being attacked. Jiraiya stood up from the pile as Kiba and Iruka were finishing tying up Naruto. Don't worry, we're just kidnapping him for his party tonight. I know that the women are coming over here for their own little party. I'll have him back by morning at least. Temari looked to see an angry Naruto yelling at them to let them go. She wasn't sure if she should trust the old pervert, but a part of her knew that the boys would be looking forward to it. She grinned as she looked at him. Alright, just try not to damage him too much. Temari-chan. Naruto whined. It's for your own good, Naruto-kun, Temari said, giving him a wink. Naruto shouted as the men then started to carry him off. He kept on trying to get free, but Iruka still know how to make knots that even he had trouble with. After some time he finally started to settle down as he just let them carry him. They would have to let him go eventually, so he was going to wait. So what's all this about anyway? Naruto muttered. It's your bachelor party, kid, Jiraiya said to him. All men that are going to marry should have one. Everyone will be there and trust me, you'll enjoy it. So, it's a party, for me? The boy asked, and when the old man nodded, Naruto changed his mind on this. He never really had a party for himself before. This might be fun after all. Little did he know just what a bachelor party was and what was in it. Plus, if he had known that Jiraiya had planned this out, then he really would have known what to expect, but he would soon find out. When they got inside, they let him loose and he could see everyone of his male friends were there. He even saw a few of the adults that he knew, like Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, and even Chuki from the ramen stand. He even saw that guy from Suna with half his face covered was here. Sasuke was even brooding in the back alone as usual. So man, how's it feel to be the first to get married? Kiba asked as he came up to Naruto. Weird, Naruto said to the taller boy. But also nice. I mean, I wasn't sure about Temari-chan and I could be happy, but, well. Naruto blushed a bit as he smiled, thinking of Temari. Kiba saw this and laughed as he slapped him on the back hard enough to nearly topple the shorter boy. Man, you got it bad, but she is kind of good looking. Are you making a reference to my sister? A cold neutral tone was heard and Kiba got very still. He slowly looked around to see Gaara looking at him. Kiba had heard from Naruto that Gaara had been changing, but it would take a long time to forget seeing that guy use his sand to turn a team into bloody mist. Hey, didn't see you there. Kiba said, obviously nervous. Gaara just stared at him for a moment. Was that a reference to my height? Kiba made a slight choking sound as he quickly made an excuse to go talk to Neji. Although he walked off as fast as he could. Naruto then caught a small twitch on Gaara's mouth. Where you playing with him? Naruto asked. I've been working on my sense of humor, as it were, although so far no one really gets it. Gaara said in all seriousness. Naruto just broke out laughing, leaving Gaara a little confused but happy that his friend seemed to get his sense of humor. Later on, when everyone was talking and drinking and having a good time, Jiraiya took Naruto and then placed him in a chair. Now then, my boy, there is one thing that all bachelor parties need, and especially for the man of the moment. Oh, what's that? Naruto asked. Jiraiya grinned as he raised a hand to the man at the bar. Soon there was hard rock music and the lights lowered. Jiraiya giggled as two ladies walked into the room suddenly, dressed in different colored kimonos and with their hair put up and held with Chinese-style pins. Both women appeared to be twins and had a very beautiful look in their early 20s. So we hear there is a lucky young man getting married, one of them said. Believe it or not, ladies, this is the lucky man, Jiraiya said, pointing to Naruto. One of them leaned down and pinched his cheek. My, aren't you a cute one? They sure are getting young these days. Naruto, these are Mai and Miu. I knew them from a while back. Jiraiya said to him. You mean you knew our mother, Jiraiya-sama? Mai giggled. She always said you were one of her favorite customers. Ah, it's so nice to see a family business, Jiraiya giggled. So what exactly do you two do? Naruto asked, blushing a little. Both smiled at him as they started to move in slow silky movements and undid their hair, making the dark hair fall down to their backs. Then they undid the sashes on their belts and pressed themselves against each other. The twins slowly started to open up each robe and undress the other. By this point everyone was too shocked by the sight of two hot-looking twins undressing each other. Slowly they were only dressed in long stockings, a thong and bras that were very skimpy. They got on each side of Naruto as they slowly caressed him, and one of them leaned to his ear. "We're professional adult entertainers, we do everything from geisha to stripping," Mew said softly. "That's right, we learned everything from Mother Personality," Mai said next. It was at that point a few of the men fell back with nosebleeds while the others were able to keep calm. Guy looked like he was between shock and horror at such an unyouthful moment. Asuma blushed and tried to avoid staring too hard. Kakashi seemed to take it in stride, although he was wondering if he could hunt down Anko later on and see as she was up for something. He was getting a hard-on from this, although he did have a feeling Jiraiya had something planned, just not this good. Neji was trying to keep his Hyuga composure, but it wasn't easy. He had never seen anything like this before, while his teammate Lee was just frozen in place, unsure what to think of it. Kiba was grinning and was a bit envious of Naruto at the moment. Gaara and Kankuro, who had been asked to join along with their sensei, were there too. Gaara looked just neutral as always while Kankuro was enjoying the show. He only hoped that Temari never found out about this, or else she would kill Naruto. He noticed that Naruto's face was all red and he was sweating like crazy as the women teased him. "Now this is a party," Kankuro said, grinning. Then he noticed Gaara and the slight difference in his stance. "Unless you knew what to look for, you'd miss it. Don't worry, I get the feeling he'll not let things get too far." "He better not," Gaara said back. Meanwhile Naruto was caught between heaven and hell. Heaven because of the two beautiful women, and hell because if Temari even found out, she would kill him in the most painful way possible. Although they did smell really nice and their skin felt really soft. "No, damn it. Don't act like Ero Sennin," he thought, no matter how hard it was not to notice. Mai reached up and undid the knot behind her neck as a piece of her top fell down a bit. "Oops, looks like I had a bit of an accident." Naruto's heart couldn't take any more if this kept up. "You know you are free to touch us in any way as long as it's not between our legs, little man," Mew said in a husky tone as she pressed her impressive breasts against him. Really?" Naruto gulped, and for a moment he thought about it. After all, this would be his only chance for something like this, and they looked very nice to touch. But then he thought of Temari and he frowned. He just couldn't do it. It would hurt her if she found out about this, and honestly he didn't feel right about it. I can't do this. I really like Temari-chan and this would betray her, so I'm sorry." Then he felt both tops laid out on his head as the cups covered his eyes. "You sure?" one of them said, and he gave a very weak nod. They giggled as they each gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Well, whoever this girl is, I hope she knows how lucky she is. But I think the rest of the party will appreciate us," the other twin said. "Just remember, you can look. That's not cheating." Naruto just sat there wondering if he should just leave the tops on his head, but eventually he pulled them down, and when he saw both women topless he got a huge nosebleed as he shot back and fell onto his back in the chair. Kiba and Neji were trying not to stare. Well, Neji wasn't. He was brought up to respect women, but Kiba was stealing as many looks as he could. "Oh man, I'm going to be dreaming about this for months." Kiba groaned. Neji grunted. "I hope you don't act like that towards women when my cousin is around." "Hey, I treat Hinata very well," Kiba said, offended by his insinuation about him. "I should hope so," Neji said to him, but then nearly jumped when a bare pair of arms wrapped around him and two large fleshy mounds pressed up against his back. "Now you boys shouldn't fight," Mai said in a sultry voice as she gently rubbed up against him. "This is supposed to be a celebration." Neji gulped as he tried to remain in control, but having a beautiful and mostly naked woman pressed up against him like that put his Hyuga control on the breaking point. Kiba looked on from his seat, jealous, until someone slid onto his lap. He looked in surprised as the other twin was there. He also couldn't help but look down at her bare chest either. "Now don't worry, there's two of us and we have all night," Mew whispered into his ear, making the boy's face all red. The party got a bit more interesting in the next hour with the twin girls there, and they made sure to go around and give every man there some of their time. Some enjoyed it more than others, and for the younger ones they got memories that they would never forget. Jiraiya-sama. Guy said, appalled at all the things that the women had been doing. How can you subject them to such unyouthful things? What are you talking about? Jiraiya asked, bored as he took a shot of sake. When I was a kid I would have loved this. Hell, I still love it. Isn't the spirit of youth supposed to be about living life to the fullest and going out there with no worries or inhibitions? There is also decency. Guy countered. That's overrated. Jiraiya waved it off. Gee, Guy-sensei, I am not sure what to think. A slightly shaken Lee said as he walked up to both adults. Although he knew he should be youthful, he wasn't sure about the things he thought and felt with the two older women in the room as they were. Although he had to admit both women were very beautiful and very attractive. Kid, when you became a ninja you became an adult, so time to enjoy all the perks. Jiraiya handed the boy a drink. Here, try this and enjoy the youthfulness of being an adult. Well, if you say so. Lee guessed that a man like the legendary Jiraiya would know what he was talking about, so he quickly took a sip. Lee don't. Gate was too late. Lee took his sip and that's when all hell broke loose. Temari's party. Temari was having her own little party at her house. That is after what the boys did after kidnapping her future husband. She had to admit it had been a little funny seeing him shouting at them like that as they carried him off. Now she was in a room with all of the female girls, the new one that took her place on her old team, plus a few adults. Tsunade was there with Shizune in tow, the younger woman trying to make Tsunade ease up on the drinking. The Hokage had surprised Temari by bringing in bottles of sake for tonight. Kurenai, who was Hinata's teacher, showed up. Apparently she was here to make chaperone Hinata for her father. Plus a woman named Anko came with the genjutsu user, a friend of the red-eyed woman who apparently didn't want to be left out of a party. Temari remembered the woman from the Chunin exams. She reminded Temari almost of a female Naruto in a way the older woman acted. She didn't mind. It wasn't like Temari had many female friends anyway, and anyway the woman seemed amusing. She had also invited Ayame, the ramen girl, to show up. It was odd seeing the slightly older girl in something other than the work clothing at the ramen stand. She was in a blue dress skirt and matching top. So far the party was then talking, and of course the topic eventually turned to Naruto. Temari was learning all kinds of stories about her husband that she had never heard of before. Sakura talked about the wave mission and a few things that had happened in the Chunin exam and other times. She even told of the first prank he pulled on Kakashi for being late to the classroom to pick them up. Anko seemed to laugh a little more at that one than most for some reason. Naruto has always been a very interesting person, Kurenai supplied, taking a small drink. Although I have not known him long, I have heard things. Most of them true, I bet. Tsunade snickered as she took yet another full drink down. She was already a little tipsy but not fully drunk, yet at least. Although I do admit that he's a good kid, so you better not do anything to harm the boy Temari or I will take it personally. I don't plan on it. He is a good person. After all, he beat my brother and actually changed him for the better. I own him more than anyone else just for that alone. Temari said honestly. Tsunade nodded. Yeah, the brat has a way of changing people for the better. Hell, he got me off my ass to come back here. Plus he's fun to mess with. Anko chuckled. His blood tasted nice though. I hope you're not planning to damage my husband like that again, Temari warned her. She remembered that day when this woman cut Naruto's cheek with a kunai and licked the blood off his face. Don't worry, I got something better to keep me occupied lately, Anko said, holding up her hands. Then she got on a smirk on her face. So tell me, how is the boy? And I mean the really juicy stuff. He a good kisser, good with his hands, good in bed, or are you two waiting for the wedding night for that one? That got a round of blushes from most of the women present. Anko, you shouldn't say things like that, Shizune said at the slightly younger woman. Naruto was like a kid brother to her and she really didn't need to hear about that kind of thing. Well, from what Temari said, he's a good kisser who can give killer foot and shoulder rubs. Ino grinned, remembering that conversation they had. Shoulder rubs? Tsunade asked as she thought of what Jiraiya could do with his hands. Had he been giving Naruto hints on what to do with Temari? He looked at the girl who was trying hard not to blush. Damn, the boy must be good seeing the smile that was trying to hide itself on Temari's face. Anyways, how about we get to the gifts? Sakura said, her face looking a lot like her hair at the moment. Thinking of her teammates in their more intimate moments was a little much for her young mind at the moment. Now you're talking, Temari said, thankful for the change in topic. So she started to open up gifts. One of a photo album for all future memories, she was looking forward to filling it. Matsuri got her some much needed things from Suna, mainly a collection of ointments and other things that she couldn't get here. Already the young girl was moving up in her books. The other girls gave her the usual stuff, but it wasn't until she got to a box that Anko apparently got her that was when things got more interesting. Temari pulled open the box and blinked, then she blushed as she pulled out a long black nightie that looked like it had no back and went to her thighs. A couple of girls chalked on their drinks at that. Hope you have a good use for it on your special night, Anko said with a smirk. I had to guess your size also, there is a little extra in there. Temari pulled out a pair of handcuffs and blushed even more. What the hell am I supposed to do with these? I think rope is more her style, Tsunade slurred as the drinks were started to catch up to her. Although I think she can pull off the dominatrix look if she got some black leather and a whip. Yeah, but who owns a whip? Anko asked, as it wasn't exactly a normal weapon people sold. Then she noticed a slight blush on Tenten's face. Oh, is the little weapons girl into the kinky stuff? Didn't know you had it in you, kid. Everyone looked to a very embarrassed Tenten, and she felt very embarrassed because her idol was in the room. I only have one and it's a weapon, it's not for that kind of stuff. Oh really? Ino smirked. Somehow I can see your teammate Lee being into that whole stuff with how insane he trains with your sensei. Then again there is Neji, he's no Sasuke-kun but he's nice eye candy. The blonde girl giggled. Eye candy. This came from both Tenten and Hinata. Ino. Hinata said, shocked that her friend would say such a thing about her cousin. She thought of him like an older brother. I'm just kidding, Ino said to the Hyuga heiress. Temari, thankful for the spotlight being pulled off her, quickly put that present away. She really hoped that the guys weren't embarrassing Naruto this much. A bit later, Temari was cleaning up, wishing she knew the shadow clone jutsu in order to get this done faster. She made a mental note to get Naruto to teach her it at some point. That's when her future husband came walking in. His clothing was ripped and ruffled and he had a bruise on his face. What the hell happened? Temari asked, looking at him. Lee. Naruto said in a tired tone. At the wedding party, don't let him near anything alcoholic. Lee did this. Temari blinked and then thought about it. That guy was like a hurricane when in battle, but why would he just go off like that? She asked and Naruto explained what Guy told them about Lee. He then went into the explanation of how long it took to get him knocked out and how much damage that Jiraiya had to pay for. Thankfully I should be healed up by morning, but I just want to go to bed, Naruto said as he slowly made for his room. He suddenly stopped as he felt his jacket was caught on something, then he looked to see Temari giving him a level look as she held on. Naruto. She said slowly. Why do you smell like perfume? Naruto's eyes widened as he forgot how close the twins got to him. He sniffed his jacket and it was covered in it. He knew he was dead at this moment. He was sweating bullets now as he tried to think of something to explain it all. He couldn't say one of the girls met up with him, they wouldn't say that if she asked later. Plus, what if she thought that he was cheating on her? He felt her grip tighten and he knew that she was losing patience. So he did what anyone would do, he broke. It wasn't my fault. Ero Sennin brought these ladies to the party, then they started to take each other's clothing off. Then they were sitting on me and wanted me to touch them, but I couldn't and told them I didn't want to, so they left me alone, and soon after that's when Lee started to drink. So. You had two naked women on you. Temari said in a neutral tone. Not really naked. Mostly naked. But I didn't do anything. I told them I couldn't because I was marrying you and I didn't want to betray you, and he was silenced when she placed a finger on his lips. Okay, I believe you. Naruto blinked. You do. Yes, because I trust you. Then she leaned down and gave him a scary look. And because I know that you know what I would do to you if I find out you're lying to me. Naruto nodded really quickly. Good. Temari sighed and smiled at him as she went to get her fan. Now go on the bed, we have a big day. What are you doing? Oh, that's easy, she said in a happy tone. I'm going to hunt down a certain white-haired pervert and kill him. Chapter 19. The Big Day. Hokage Tower. Naruto was nervous, although he wasn't sure why. Technically things wouldn't really be any different, they would still be living together, he would just be husband and wife now. Okay, so maybe that was what was making him feel so stressed. There was just this huge finality for it all. He had been getting used to the idea of being married with her, and in all honesty, he was enjoying his life with her lately. Being a husband was totally unknown territory for him. Was he supposed to act differently, or was there more to being a husband than what he was doing now? Plus came the thought of kids, he had no idea if he could be a father, and what if things went wrong with the marriage? He had seen couples on the street before that looked like they hated each other. Okay, so he and Temari had their ups and downs, but nothing serious at least. But what if things changed? He actually liked Temari now. She was really pretty, smart, talented as well. She helped him to be a better ninja too. He liked waking up in the morning to see her, eating with her, talking with her. His life had been pretty empty at home before now. He didn't want to go back to the emptiness again. Hey Naruto, are you okay? Iruka asked him as he helped Naruto into his wedding kimono. They were currently in one of the office rooms as they got ready. Everyone else was either in another room or already seated up on the roof. Iruka himself was in a basic black kimono as he helped put the final touches on Naruto's garb. Naruto was wearing a more traditional tuxedo kimono, although it had the standard black, the undershirt he picked out was orange. He had been pretty instant about that. A few people tried to talk him out of it, even Temari had asked him, but this was something he wouldn't budge on. This was his big day too, and he would wear his favorite color no matter what. He also was given the traditional knife to be worn in the sash on his waist. That had been given to him by Kakashi on the bachelor party as a gift, apparently he had it made special for him. Naruto had seen the Uzumaki swirl on the hilt, which was orange as well. It had been one of the coolest things he got last night. Thankfully he was fully healed by morning, the others not so much, he bet. Iruka-sensei, I'm a little, well, scared. Oh, that's natural Naruto, Iruka said to him with a kind smile. A knock was heard as Jiraiya put his head into the room. So how are things going in here? He's a little nervous, Iruka said to him, although he had lost a bit of the image he had in his head about the legendary old man. Apparently you should never meet your heroes. Jiraiya limped into the room a bit. Hey, what happened to your leg, Arrow Sennin? Ask that soon-to-be wife of yours, he muttered to himself. So what's there to be worried about, kid? You're getting yourself a fine woman there, beautiful, intelligent, hell I bet there are a few envious males around. So what's to be nervous about? What if I screw things up? I mean, I know I'm not the smartest guy, and I tend to get into trouble. True. Plus you're loud, messy, a little thick and rude. Gee, thanks, Naruto said deadpanned. But the thing is that I can tell that girl is crazy for you, Jiraiya told him, and he had the bruises to prove it. Now I'm not going to lie to you, a marriage won't be easy like any relationship. There will be ups and downs, but trust me, I get the feeling you two will work out fine. Just as long as you are there for each other. You think so? Naruto asked, a little hopeful. Hey, have I ever let you down before? Jiraiya smirked and then noticed the scowl on the younger boy. Oh come on, name one time. You threw me off a cliff, you took all my money and never paid me back, you show me something and instead of sticking around to help, you go off to peek at women while not giving me any tips or help with training. I said one thing. In another room, Temari was getting the final touches on her own gown with Shizune and Sakura helping her out. Temari was just as, if not more nervous as Naruto. She had on a white kimono that had a red obi belt, she had placed the 2 fans Naruto had given her in them. It felt right to use those fans for this day, plus her usual battle fan was a bit impractical at the moment. There were golden flowers on the lower part of her dress. The veil was off to the side as the girls placed the makeup on her face. Temari, stop moving. Sakura told her, this isn't easy if you keep moving. Sorry. Temari had a very hard time sitting still. She knew this day had been coming for a while now, but now that it was here, she couldn't remember being this nervous in her life, and she didn't know why. You know it's okay to be nervous, Shizune said to the younger woman. I'm not nervous. Shizune only gave a small knowing smile. It's only natural for you to be, although I don't see why. Naruto-kun likes you that much, everyone can see. Plus, you seem to like him. Temari blushed a bit at having her feelings for Naruto pointed out in the open like that. It's not that. What if I screw this marriage up? I mean, it's not like my parents were good examples. You never talk about your parents, Sakura said, realizing this. There's a reason for it, Temari sighed. There was no love in that marriage, or if there was, then it left long before I could remember. I just don't want this to turn into that. I mean, I know I have my faults. I can be bossy, stubborn and short-tempered. Sounds a bit like Naruto already, Sakura said to her. Temari gave her a dirty look, but Shizune only laughed a little. Naruto-kun is a little like that, Shizune told her. But I wouldn't worry too much. He adores you and he has a big heart. I can't really see him being mad for long with anyone, without good reason that is. But as long as you both try to work things through, it should be fine. I hope you're right, Temari sighed. Hokage Tower, top level. Everyone was sitting themselves down waiting for the wedding to start off. Kurenai and Asuma were there as they watched over their teams. Everyone was in formal dress for this, and they could see many important faces. The major clans were here, the parents of the children too, council members of both Konoha and Suna. It seemed that everyone who was anyone was here. Asuma also caught the Anbu guard among them as well, or at least a couple of the lesser skilled ones. He knew that there had to be a lot of security for this day. Also, Asuma wished he was in better form. Lee got in a lucky shot and his ribs still hurt like hell on the side. He really should talk to Guy about the kind of training he was putting that kid through to punch like that. Are you alright? Kurenai asked, seeing his discomfort. I'll be fine. Besides, I don't think anyone got out of that place without some kind of injury. That boy is scary when drunk. Kurenai chuckled as she couldn't believe a young boy like that had been so bad with just one drink in him. Then again, looking at Kiba with bruised lip and Shino limping a bit, she just might believe it. Then she saw two people entering and it got all her attention. It wasn't that it was just two people, it was because of who those two people were. In walked in both Anko and Kakashi, together it would seem. Are they together? Kurenai asked as she pointed it out to Asuma. He was just as surprised as she was. Kakashi had never said anything about seeing Anko of all people. I can't believe you nearly made us late, Anko said to Kakashi, a little annoyed with him. Actually, maybe I should have expected this, given how late you usually arrive. You don't usually say I'm late. I thought we usually arrive roughly at the same time. That earned him a light elbow to the ribs. Not that you perv, she smirked. Why can't you be like that all the time and not just in bed? Kakashi just shrugged. I can't read in bed usually. Can't believe you read the thing that one night, Anko muttered. You didn't seem to mind when I read it out loud, Kakashi chuckled. In fact, you seemed to get a little more frisky after I got to the good parts. Like how? Frisky? You were when you found me last night. What the hell happened last night anyway? You found me, and you were all ready to go at it, but you were also bruised up. She asked him. Kakashi sighed as he rubbed the back of his head as he told her exactly what happened. Anko ended up laughing her ass off suddenly a few minutes later. Naruto was waiting at the altar that had been set up. Iruka was with him, and Tsunade was at the altar in her white Hokage robes. Konohamaru was waiting next to Iruka with the wedding rings, grinning like mad to be a part of this. Naruto was a little nervous as everyone waiting for the ceremony to start off. He felt a little better about this, but this was a huge day for him. Today he would have a wife and be a part of something. He was scared, happy, nervous, and worried all in one. His stomach hadn't felt like this since the last time he drank spoiled milk. He grinned to himself as that had been a very long time ago. That was one of the many little things that Temari did for him. She always made sure that the food they had was never spoiled. He also liked having someone that would cook for him, help him clean and share in the chores. It was nice to have someone share his life, he started to realize. Just when he was starting to think more on it, the music started. It was a wind flute and drum beat as everyone looked to the stairs. Up came Moegi first as she sprinkled flower petals. Then came Sakura walking up, and then a figure in white was seen. Naruto couldn't stop staring as Temari made her way towards him. She was being walked to the altar by Baki as he was the closest thing to a father figure she had. He hadn't seen her in the wedding dress yet, but she looked amazing to him. He was captivated by how it could show off a hint of her figure, but Temari had a grace about her. He wished he could see through the veil she had on. Soon both of them knelt by the altar. When everyone was in position, Tsunade was ready to start the ceremony. She started off with a prayer to the spirits to watch over, protect and to bless this union. After she got through the long and boring part, she got to her own part of the ceremony. We are gathered here today to witness not only the bonding between two souls, but between our villages. Tsunade said to the crowd. In front of all here, we are to witness this union. The couple have decided to make their own vows. Naruto felt a little nervous speaking in front of everyone, but he looked at Temari. She looked beautiful from what he could make out, and suddenly nothing really mattered. He wasn't sure what to do for vows. He had written so many things, but they ended up as scraps of paper on the floor of the room. So he thought he would just say what he felt. Temari-chan, Naruto said with a slight pause. I wasn't sure how things were going to work out between us when we first were put together. I didn't know you at all, and I was worried we wouldn't work out very well. But then I got to know you. I saw the side of you that I know you try to hide from the world. I've seen your softer and caring side. I've seen how smart and talented you are too. You've been helping me become a better ninja and a better person. I know I have a lot to learn in life, but I'm glad that I won't do it alone. I'm glad that you'll be by my side, and you can count on me being by your side as well. I want us to be happy together and to have the kind of family that we both wanted growing up. If there is anyone in the world that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, then I'm glad it's you. You're one of my most precious people, and I promise to care for you, protect you for life. Temari felt the sting of tears in her eyes threatening to show up. She did her best to not cry, but it was hard. She knew that Naruto meant every single word of it, and it touched her. Naruto, you're always surprising. Temari said softly to him. Always unpredictable, and I'm glad for it. You've helped to bring joy and happiness into my life. You did so much for me and my family. Because of you, I'm closer to my brothers than ever. I've seen that deep down you're a wonderful person. You're the most caring and warm man in the world. It's my honor to be your wife. Tsunade smirked as she watched the two youngsters. She poured the sake in a few small cups on the altar and gave them to the bride and groom. Naruto was a little hesitant, but he took a breath and gulped it down. He did his best to hold it down as well. He really didn't like alcohol all that much. Temari fared better than that, although she wasn't used to it. The rings then. The Hokage said, and Konohamaru came up with the rings. Naruto took it and slipped it onto Temari's finger. He said a short vow to her, and soon Temari did the same. Let these rings symbolize the bond between the two of you. Tsunade sighed as it was finally over. Although it was Naruto's wedding, she just didn't like being all official like this. Now kiss the bridge and you two are married. Temari lifted her veil, and Naruto was surprised by how she looked. With the red lips and the eyeliner, she looked ever more exotic to him. He felt his heart racing at the image before him. Slowly he leaned forward and she mirrored him as they kissed in front of everyone. There were celebrations as people applauded or shouted out. Naruto and Temari pulled away as they could only smile at the other. They were now officially husband and wife. After the crowd died down, the reception was in full force. People brought up tables and moved the chairs around as food was brought up. As this was being set up, people came up to congratulate the new couple. So how's it feel to be married, man? Kiba asked Naruto. He grinned happily as he rubbed the back of his head, weird but in a good way. I just can't get over you're the first to be married, Ino sighed as she got a dreamy look on her face. I can't wait for my own wedding. I pity the poor man already, Shikamaru sighed. What was that? Ino said angrily to him, giving him a death glare. As the party went on, as people started to dance as the music was playing, Others talked amongst themselves, and all in all it was a pretty good celebration. There was a little tension between some of the guests, mainly due to the fact that scars of the invasion could still be seen in the village. Yet another reason why Tsunade had guards hidden all over the place, as an assassination on any Suna member would have ruined everything. Hey, you want to dance, Temari-chan? Naruto asked, seeing everyone starting to get on the dance floor. Sure. Temari said, taking his hand. Wait, since when do you dance? Sakura asked in surprise. Temari-chan has been teaching me, Naruto said, a little embarrassed. When he had heard there was dancing at this type of thing, he had been worried. He told Temari about it and she took it upon herself to teach him. After all, if he was going to be Hokage, someone had to teach him all the things he would need to know. This I have to see. Sakura smiled as she stood right there to enjoy the show. Naruto was a little nervous. He remembered how he had stepped on her feet a lot at the start. He got better, but this was in public. He felt her put his hands into position and he looked up. She was smiling at him and gave him a small nod of confidence. He felt a bit better as he slowly started to lead. It was a little slow going and a bit awkward. She was taller than him, of course, but soon he started to get more confident. He may not have been the best, but he could at least go with the flow of the music. Many of his friends actually stopped to watch them, although he didn't notice. He was too busy looking at Temari. She looked great this day and it was strange. Before he had been so against this, but now he felt like this was where he wanted to be in life. Hinata was sitting down at a table as she watched everyone. She wasn't really the type to mingle. Her father was doing plenty of that anyway. Although it had been some time since she first heard that Naruto would be married, it wasn't until this moment that she knew he would never be hers. It was something that she had been trying to come to terms with, and now it was truly sinking in. She looked to see Naruto and Temari together, and despite everything, she just couldn't hate the girl. She made Naruto happy, and that was all she really wanted him to be. She had seen him struggle all his life, and it was good to see him finally getting what he deserved in life. But she wasn't the only person noticing things. Her own teammate Kiba had noticed her sitting all alone. She looked a little down and he was wondering why. Well, he was going over there to make her feel better. She was his teammate and good friend after all. Hey, Hinata, Kiba said as he arrived next to her. She jumped in surprise at his arrival. Oh, Kiba-kun, I'm sorry I didn't notice you. That's okay, so why do you look so down? He asked her, only to see her shifting a little nervously. He looked to see the dancing and he thought that she was feeling left out. He knew that she was shy, maybe hoping to be asked to dance. Well, he didn't like to see her down, so he might as well go and cheer her up. Hey, you want to dance? He asked her with a friendly smile. Hinata sat there shocked. Did she just hear him right? She did admit that a part of her wanted to join in, but was he asking her as a friend or something more? Isn't that what people who liked someone else did? They asked another person to dance. Maybe she was just reading too much into it. Hinata must have taken a little too long to answer as she found him grabbing one of her hands. He gently pulled her up to her feet and led her to the dance floor. She blushed as he gently pulled them into a slow dance. She was nervous at first but soon got in step with him. She was actually very surprised. Kiba was a good dancer. Kiba-kun, where did you learn to do this? Kiba blushed himself as he told her in a low voice, don't tell anyone, okay? My mom and sister thought that I should know and both taught me. Hinata giggled at the mental image as he scowled at her. Hey, it's not that funny. Sorry, I won't tell anyone. Thanks, he sighed. Temari and Naruto were already on their third dance for the night when she noticed Gaara and Matsuri were standing close by each other, but nothing else. She mentally sighed. The girl kept stealing glances at him, but she was too nervous to act. Plus Gaara, she doubted, noticed, or if he did, knew why she did it. She sighed seeing that. She knew that with Gaara's past, the odds of him finding any girl that could like him was pretty low. Too many of their generation were afraid of him. What's wrong? Naruto asked, seeing her worried look. Just watching something a bit painful, she motioned with her head towards the two. Naruto looked over a little and was confused, but he soon remembered that the girl was supposed to like Gaara. And given the way she kept stealing looks, he could see she did. Hell, he used to do that to Sakura in class all the time, not that has got him anywhere, but still a plan was forming. Hey Temari-chan, I think I have an idea, but make sure Gaara doesn't do anything to me, okay? Temari looked at him confused until he explained his plan. It could be risky, but it could also be a bit of fun. Matsuri was nervous to say the least. She was in a foreign village for the first time in her life. Although it seemed like a nice place, she couldn't help but notice the damaged sections of the city. She felt sad that her people had done some of that. They were at times a hard people, but they were honorable. But that was one of the reasons for having this marriage in the first place, to heal the wounds of that day. She also couldn't stop glancing at Gaara. He was wearing more formal Suna clothing. It was all brown and had a little red here and there. It was very nice looking and he looked handsome in it. Ever since that day he saved her, she felt more than just appreciation. But she was just a rookie. She wasn't that skilled yet, so how was she to ask him to dance? She watched all the people dancing and she wished she could do it too. It looked like fun. She sighed softly to herself, resigned to sit on the sidelines, casting little glances at her secret crush. Hey Matsuri. The girl jumped at being addressed and found herself facing Naruto Uzumaki. Oh. Hello Naruto-san, and congratulations. Naruto smiled to her. Thanks. Hey, you want to dance? Temari-chan is taking a break and I still want to dance, but I need a partner. Me. Matsuri wasn't sure what to say. She would like Gaara to have asked her, but he didn't seem to want to dance. Plus Naruto did seem like a nice person, although before she could say anything he took her hand and led her to the dance area. She blushed a bit at the close contact, but he seemed to be a gentleman about placing his hands. Truth be told, she had never been this close to a boy before. This didn't go unnoticed as Gaara watched Naruto take Matsuri away to dance. He watched with that blank look on his face, but his eyes were strangely focused on the two of them. He watched as Naruto and Matsuri started out. He said something and she smiled and then laughed a bit. They seemed to be enjoying themselves and Gaara was feeling slightly annoyed because of it. He didn't see why he would be. After all, they were both his friends, something he had little of in life. They were having a good time, so why wasn't he happy for that? Ever since he had started to open up, he found new feelings creeping up on him. Sometimes they were pleasant, other times they weren't. Sometimes he was so confused by what he felt he got frustrated with them. Hey there, little brother, Temari said as she walked up to him. Why don't we share a dance? Gaara looked at her for a moment before speaking. I'm not sure I can. Sure it is, it's easy. Hell, if I can teach Naruto so well, I think I can do the same for you. Please. I want to be able to dance with my brothers just once at my own wedding. She told him gently. Gaara knew how important this day was for his big sister. Maybe he could at least try for her sake. What do I do? Temari got him into position and gently started to lead him into the dance. It wasn't easy, but Gaara was a fast learner. She also couldn't help but notice that his eyes always strayed to Matsuri and she had to hold off on her grin. Maybe Gaara did feel something under all that sand of his. If you want to dance that bad with her, you can just ask, you know. Gaara cast his eyes to her, almost like he had no idea what she was talking about. Gaara, you've been staring at them for a while now. I don't know what's going on, but if you really would like to dance, just go over then and cut in. Besides, I think I'd like to get my husband back for the next dance. Gaara mulled things over. He couldn't be certain, but he felt something was going on here. But then there were these strange feelings he got. He never felt anything like it before. When he saw her laugh and smile, it felt like there was a glimmer of light. But when he saw that it was Naruto making her smile, he felt this hot feeling in his chest. It wasn't like anger or rage, but it felt similar to those. While he was thinking, Temari was gently moving them over to the couple. She caught Naruto's eye and gave him a small nod. He gave a small smile as he moved himself and Matsuri towards them. It wasn't long until Naruto, accidentally, bumped into Temari. Ah, Temari-chan, there you are, Naruto said, smiling up at her. I thought you wanted to take a break. Are you ready for another dance? Well, if Gaara doesn't mind. She looked at her little brother, how just shrugged. So she took Matsuri's place, with said girl looking a little uncomfortable. Although I hate to leave Matsuri without a partner. Gaara, do me a favor and at least keep her company until the dance ends, will you? The newlyweds were already on their way away from them, before either of them could say anything. Matsuri was blushing as she was left alone with Gaara. She didn't think he would want to dance with her, so she turned to tell him that she was fine. She never even got to open her mouth to say a word, she just was stunned when he saw the sight before her. There was Gaara simply holding out his hand to her. Her whole face went red as she shyly took his hand. When he moved closer, she was certain she was inventing new shades of red with her face. Are you all right? Gaara asked her. You seem too warm. I'm fine, she said as she tried to force her blush down, but it was hard. She was dancing with her crush in such a way that she could have only dreamt of. Meanwhile, Temari and Naruto were watching the scene with matching grins. I hope this breaks the ice between them. Temari said. Sure it will, this is my brilliant plan, remember. Temari gave a soft smile. Well, you do come up with the most interesting plans. Naruto just grinned his fox-like grin at her as they danced on. Hey, you mind if I steal your husband for a dance? Sakura's voice said to the couple. Temari smiled at the younger girl. Sure, but I want him back intact. Only if he behaves. Sakura smiled back to her. Hey, I'm standing right here, you know. Naruto pouted, making the two girls giggle as Sakura led her friend a few feet away. Naruto had to admit there had been times when he wished he could have gotten this close to her. But those were the thoughts of a deep crush, an unrequited crush. But things had been going well between them. They were closer, but more as friends than anything, which to Naruto was just fine. Sakura was surprised by how well Naruto was doing. You're not bad at this. Temari-chan is a great teacher, although I thought you'd be with Sasuke. Tem, or did Ino beat you to it? Sakura got a scowl on her face. I could have if Ino Pig had let me have a chance. Every time I went to ask, she just had to ask at that point as well. Then we argued and then Sasuke-kun was already gone. She sighed then. I wanted at least one dance with him for the wedding. Well, it's his loss. Naruto smiled at her. Besides, I think Lee was looking forward to a dance. Sakura giggled. How can he dance with a broken foot? What happened for him to get a broken foot anyway? I think it was when he tried to kick the steel support beam, or when Ero Sennin summoned a toad onto him to calm him down. Naruto threw out loud. Then again, that whole fight had been kind of a blur to him. Things had happened too fast that he hadn't even noticed the start of the fight. What were you guys doing last night? Sakura wondered. She had seen all the males sporting some kind of injury. Naruto blushed a bit, remembering the twins, and thought better than to mention them. It was just the normal kind of party, but then Ero Sennin gave Lee some sake. Apparently Lee is a lightweight and he gets really weird and dangerous when he drinks. Seriously. Sakura's eyebrows shot up at that. Although Lee was already kind of weird, the fact he could even more weird and dangerous on top of it, was fairly surprising to her. As they danced, she had to admit that the moment was very nice. Hey Naruto, you're happy about how things turned out, right? She asked him. He looked at her confused for a moment. Yeah, I mean, we have our arguments now and then, but overall I'm really glad to have married her. I really am happy about all of this. I know I wasn't at first, but well, things changed. Why do you ask? No reason. I was just curious, she told him. Although on the inside she had hoped that things were good for him. She had been doing a lot of thinking with all the downtime and personal training she had with Temari, as she talked with the older girl. She had slowly over time been seeing Naruto in a better light, not as the annoying prankster from school, but as a really good friend. She felt guilt for all the times she had been mean to him, so lately she had been slowly changing that. She had learned just how important her team was to her. She knew she had been pretty bad in the past. The Forest of Death had been a wake-up call for her, and she had started to grow both as a ninja and as a person. She just hoped that she could make it up to Naruto, by being a better friend to him for his life. At the moment she was glad that he finally got some happiness in his life. Hello there Naruto, said an unfamiliar voice. Naruto turned to face a man with bandages over his body. He hadn't met the man, but from the looks of him he knew that this was that Danzo guy he heard about. I was wondering if I could get a moment of your time. For some reason, Naruto doubted that was a request. Chapter 20. Sword of Damocles. Hey Sakura-chan, you mind leaving us alone for a bit? Naruto asked in a serious tone. Uh, sure. I'll go see someone of the others, Sakura said as she walked away. She didn't like how Naruto was looking at the man. She had never seen him before, but she got a bad feeling about him. She went in search of Temari or someone, just in case. So, what do you want? Naruto asked him, crossing his arms. I see you are as ill-mannered as people say, Danzo said in a neutral tone. He didn't really care how the boy spoke to him, although that defiant attitude of his was annoying at times. I came to just talk. Temari-chan already told me what you talked to her about, Naruto said to the older man. Yes, I'm sure she did, he agreed. But at any rate, I just wanted to put an offer on the table. After all, I expect a great deal from the children you have. You are after all very unique, but you were never trained like most ninja. What do you mean like that? Naruto asked, confused now. I went to the academy like everyone else. Yes, and how many of your classmates do you think have had help from ninja in their family? Naruto paused at that. He hadn't really thought about it. With the exception of Sakura, she and he were the only ones that didn't have some kind of family member as a ninja to go to. Sakura being the first in her family to try, and he, being an orphan, didn't have anyone. How often do you think they got special training from their families? To train in justice used by their family or clans use, fighting styles, or even simple help after school in their training. Naruto thought back to his own days of training by himself after school. He tried so hard, but he had to train without anyone helping him. No one was there to correct his mistakes or give him hints on how to improve. That was one of the things that his training with Temari at home showed him, that he could have used that kind of help when he was younger. Danzo saw the boy was thinking about his words, as he should. The boy had so much potential wasted because that old fool hadn't wanted to turn the boy into a weapon. All ninja were tools to the used, even he knew that he himself was like that when he was younger. But he had now become that hand that used the tool, as everyone who survives and gets into a position of power like he had done. You see, I wanted to take you in and train you among my elite forces. I've trained some of the best ninja this village has seen, and you would have been perfect. But the third wanted you to live a normal life. That didn't work out so well, did it? He could see that he hit a nerve, just like he intended. Naruto felt a sting remembering how lonely he had been most of his life. Would have it been better if he had been taken in by Danzo? Would he have still been alone all his life, but then he wouldn't have met Iruka or all the others in his class? Even if he would have been trained better, he still wouldn't have given up all the times he had been taken out for meals by Iruka. The times he would skip class with Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji, sure there were bad times, but there were still good ones. Well then, Temari-chan and myself will train our kids then, Naruto said with a determined look. In fact, now that he thought about it, he liked the idea. He could see a blonde boy and girl with them training them for school. It gave him a nice warm feeling inside. He would give his kids the kind of attention he never had. I thought as much, Danzo simply said. I merely wanted to open an option to you both. Since you both could be busy in the future. Who knows how much time you have for those types of things. But at any rate, I felt that if you ever wanted to give them something like advanced training, then I could offer my services. That is all I ask, is that you only consider the option. Oh, why would I? Naruto demanded. He really was getting a creepy vibe off the guy. He made his skin crawl for some reason. Perhaps, because I was able to convince the elders of both villages to give you and Temari time to adapt. He told him honestly. There were even those that wanted you two to produce a child as soon as possible. I thought it would be best to give you both the time for it, as you are still too young for parenting. They wanted us to have kids already? Naruto asked, surprised. Danzo nodded. Yes, but I knew it was a mistake. You two will have to produce a child eventually to prove the marriage oaths and the bond formed here. But I managed to convince them to give you both time. How much time? Naruto had to ask if this was going to be hanging over their heads. He wanted to know for how long they would be under pressure. 2 years at least. Beyond that, I would highly suggest you talk about it with your wife, Danzo said to him. Besides, the village should be fixed by then and our ninja can take it a bit more easy with life. He told the boy as he looked over the village. HN. Almost makes you sound like you care about this village. Naruto muttered, but Danzo heard it. Just because I never agreed with the philosophy of Hijiran Sarutobi, doesn't mean I don't care about this village. He had his way of doing things and I have mine. Where he thought to seek peace, I sought to ensure peace. Where he showed mercy, I showed diligence. He defended us from enemies, while I attacked our enemies before they could harm us. I like his way better, Naruto said. Danzo's way seemed too cold for his tastes. Maybe, but did you know that he could have killed Orochimaru years ago? He asked Naruto, who looked up at him in surprise. He showed mercy and weakness, and look at the cost of that. He pointed to the ruined parts of the village. So many of us died by his hands, he even lost his own life, and yet Orochimaru still lives. I would not have hesitated to destroy our enemies, and all of this wouldn't have happened. I believe that letting an enemy live will invite danger to our village and to our lives. We have many enemies in this world, as a great and powerful village that is a certainty. Danzo looked at him with a steady look. Can you stand to have our village destroyed by the weak morals of another? I may have respected him as a ninja, but I don't agree with his methods. Naruto stood there as he thought about all of that. He remembered how the third would take him on walks and talk to him about what it was like to be a ninja. He learned to become what he was through the old Hokage. He looked up to him and he still did. But Danzo's words had a sliver of truth to them. If Sarutobi had killed Orochimaru, then Sasuke wouldn't have gotten that mark on him. The village wouldn't have been attacked, with so many dead. Oh, there you are. Temari's voice came as she linked her arm with Naruto. Come on, we were supposed to talk to the Hyugas. He gave a confused look before he caught the eye he was giving Danzo. Oh right. Better not let him wait, huh? Without a word they left Danzo behind, and Naruto was glad for it. He really didn't like that guy, especially after talking with him. I'm glad you came. Thanks Sakura. She's the one that found me and told me that guy was talking to you. What did he say? Naruto sighed. He would rather not talk about it. This was their day and he didn't want to ruin things bringing up what they talked about. Truth was, some of the things were making him think, and he didn't like what they made him think about. There was some truth in what he said, but in the end he felt that the third was right to believe in what he believed. Naruto respected those that stuck by their nindo like he did. I'll tell you later, Naruto told her, and she nodded, accepting that. Oh, by the way, there was something I wanted to do, Naruto said as he took her through the party. He had nearly forgotten about it, but now that he remembered, Naruto wanted to do something to forget Danzo for the time being. He was looking for someone in particular, but it took a moment to find him with all the people here. Ah, there he is. Hey Ero Sennin. Jiraiya cringed at that and then sighed. Only one person would yell that out. He turned to face Naruto and then he flinched as the sight of Temari. He really hoped she wasn't still mad at him. What are we doing with the old pervert? Temari asked in a slightly annoyed tone. Hey Ero Sennin, I've been meaning to ask. You're really good with seals, right? Naruto asked him, ignoring Temari's tone. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? He asked the boy. The only one better than me was the fourth. Great. You think you can look at Gaara's seal? Naruto asked him as Temari gave him a surprised look. I mean, he has some problems that I don't have, and maybe you can fix up his seal for him. Jiraiya thought about it. He would have to take a look at the boy's seal to see what was done to him. He was sure that it wasn't even close to Naruto's, as that was original and powerful. It might take a moment, but seeing the hope-filled eyes of Temari, he thought maybe he could get in her good graces again. After all, he didn't need his apprentice's wife angry at him. Tell you what, I'll take a look and see what I can do, okay? I knew you could do it, Ero Sennin. Jiraiya frowned. Can't you just once not call me that? If you can help my little brother, maybe I can convince him to, Temari said to him. At least maybe for one time. Jiraiya sighed. It was better than nothing. Besides, he liked a challenge and it might be fun to show off his skills. Now he just needed to find the boy. He scanned the area, seeing the red-headed boy with a cute little brunette. He grinned at the sight. He'd give them an hour and then find him. Maybe this could be used as a side story. He giggled perversely as he went looking for his notebook. Uzumaki home. Naruto and Temari made it home. It had been a very long day, but it had been worth it. Temari felt a bit strange now that she was Temari Uzumaki, but she had gotten used to the feel of it. It would just take time to remember to write that down in official documents. But now this was the start of a new life for her. There was one more thing she had been thinking about, especially in the last few hours. In Suna, a couple wasn't legally married until they consummated the marriage. To be honest, she was a little hesitant. It would be her first time and all that, but honesty, if there was someone she wanted to lose it to, it would be him. She thought about the missions they would go on. Now that they were married, they would be sent on them. What if she or he got killed? Or worse, what if she was captured? The fates of female prisoners weren't exactly always a quick death. To hell with it, Temari thought to herself. Either one of us could die and he's the best guy the first. No. I don't care about age or my own nerves. I do want this. Today has been the best day of my life and I don't want it to end. Naruto. She smiled down at him. After you change, will you meet me in my room? Huh, what for? He asked innocently. She nearly laughed. He looked so innocent that it was very cute. She blushed a bit thinking on what she was planning. Just wait for me, I have a surprise. Oh okay. Sure thing. He gave her that huge smile of his as he went upstairs. Naruto wasn't sure what was going on, but at any rate he was still happy. Sure, that talk with Danzo had been a sour note, and gave him some things to think on, but overall it had been a great day. He wished the old man could have been here for this day. He was the only one missing. His smile dropped a bit as he looked around his room. There on a shelf he had one of a few pictures that he owed. There he looked to of him when he was young with the third Hokage. He went to pick it up and sadly smiled at the picture. This was only one of 2 pictures he had of him. Miss you, old man, I bet you would have loved this day. He put it away as he started to change. In the bathroom, Temari was already changing herself. She was out of her wedding clothing and had washed away the makeup. She pulled her hair down as she knew that he liked it like that. She was currently wearing that black nightie that Anko had given her. Okay, you can do this. Nothing to be nervous about, she told herself. They were husband and wife now, they can do this anytime they wanted. Although a bit of her was worried, what if she was bad, what if he was? What if she didn't like it or he didn't either? She stood up and looked at herself in the mirror. She was good looking and she wanted this marriage to work. If they had problems, well, they would just work them out. Naruto made it into her room in his usual t-shirt and boxers. So far she didn't seem to be in here. He scratched his head as he went in further. What's going on? Sorry. Took me a little longer to get ready, Temari's voice called out behind him. He smiled as he turned around. Nah, that's okay. So what did? You, gulp. There stood Temari in the most sexy looking thing he had ever seen. It was all black silk and hugged her body nicely. He could see her shapely legs and her hair was down as well. She had a small blush on her face as she walked towards him. He felt himself heating up as she got in front of him. Now that we're married, I was hoping that we could be closer. See, closer. Why yes, you know, as married people do. Temari said to him. Naruto looked at her and then where he was and it suddenly clicked. He blushed as he was thinking on the implications. Although as a healthy young male he had to admit he didn't mind it, he wanted to see what it was like. They were married after all, so it was okay, right? You sure about this, Temari-chan? He asked. She answered by kissing him. It was a long and loving kiss. Naruto closed his eyes as he felt his hands on her hips pulling her closer to him. He could feel her body pressed up against it and just how thin the fabric was. He felt more nervous than ever before, but he also wanted this. She took his hand as she gently led him to the bed. Temari laid herself on the bed as Naruto took a moment to look at her as he crawled up on top of her. He kissed her again like they had many times before. Both were pretty nervous, after all this was their first night together as husband and wife. To say there was a lot of pressure was like saying Jiraiya was a pervert. But both young teens wanted this and they gently started out. Eventually Naruto lightly touched her breasts through the thin material. He wasn't sure if he was doing this right as the last time he had gotten hit for it. Then again, he had it coming that time. He was gentle and noticed she was blushing. Does that feel okay? He asked nervously. She nodded her head, feeling hot and yet embarrassed. This was the first time she let a male touch her like this. It was exciting, but also she wasn't sure what to do or expect. It did feel nice, but it could be a little more hard. Just a bit harder so I can feel it. She told him, and he did a bit too much. Whoa. Not that hard. Oops. Sorry. He went back, not doing it as hard as he gently started to knead it. Yeah, like that. That feels much better. Temari sighed as she ran her hands over his body. Eventually she wanted more and took the hem of his shirt and started to pull it off. Naruto blushed as she did this, not sure if he had the kind of body that girls liked. Temari did like it. It was pretty average, but she could see where all the extra working out had started to make his body more defined. He took the straps to her gown and slowly pulled them down. Eventually he got her top to fall below her breasts. The rest was a bit awkward for the both of them. Neither had much experience and there was a lot of fumbling and hesitation. Temari knew it could be painful for a first time, and there had been some, but thankfully it wasn't as bad as she had feared. Although before things could get really started, Naruto seemed to have stopped. Did you just? Sorry. Naruto muttered. It's okay. She told him as they were a little awkward again. He pulled out and rested on the bed as there was a silence between them. I think I'll go clean up. She got up totally naked as she went to the bathroom. Naruto felt bad that he hadn't done too well. Jiraiya had warned him that first times aren't always that great. He sighed as he lay there. He wanted this to be special, and he had a feeling that Temari wanted it to be special too. He saw that he needed to clean himself as well. Thankfully she had some tissues nearby. When he was finished he swore that he wouldn't give up on making this a good night for them both. Temari sighed as she cleaned the slight blood away when she was in the bathroom. It could have been worse, she just wished she could have enjoyed it more. The start had been great, but when it came to the actual act both of them kind of failed a bit. She sighed as she walked back to her room. She was surprised to see Naruto still there. She felt a bit bad for making him finish too fast. She noticed the determined look on his face as he walked over to her. What's with the face? As soon as he was close enough he pulled her down for another kiss. This time it was deep and passionate. She felt a hand on her side trailing up and another kneading her ass. She was surprised when she felt his tongue enter her mouth. By the time she broke the kiss she was a bit flustered. Naruto, what are you doing? Making up for before, he simply said seriously as his mouth went to one of her breasts again. She gasped as she felt his mouth back on them. Why, you sure? She asked as she was feeling herself getting warm again. His answer was to trail kisses over her body as he tried his best to make up for the previous attempt. Oh God. Temari moaned as her hips jerked to his face a bit as he hands lightly gripped his head. Where did you learn that? They continued on, only now he was taking his time and doing everything he could to make up for it. By the time they finished both were nearly out of breath as they lay there on the bed next to each other. How was that? Naruto asked eventually. Oh, that was much better. What about you? Yeah, it was a lot better. Naruto grinned as he gently trailed his hand on her spine. Even though they were all sweaty and stuff, he felt very nice right now. Their warm nude bodies together like this, it just felt right in some way. Then he grinned as he flipped her over and started to kiss her neck. What? Temari could feel him getting hard again inside of her. Was that normal for a boy? It wasn't like she had any reference for it. I think more practice is needed, he chuckled to her. Temari smiled as she wrapped her legs around him and found he could actually get a bit deeper with that. This was going to be a very fun night for the both of them. Outside, Jiraiya could only giggle as he spied on them with his trusty telescope. He had been making plans to help that Gaara kid, but when he noticed the time he had to wonder if Naruto would put those tips of his to good use. Plus it would make for a great scene in his book. Although spying on a girl that young wasn't his thing, he could appreciate the type of woman she was growing into. The boy was lucky with that one. Crack. He suddenly froze as the familiar feeling of dread came over him. There was only one thing that made that distinctive sound. He looked over nervously and could see Tsunade there glaring at him as she cracked another knuckle. You better have a very good excuse for this, she told him. She had a feeling he was going to try something like this, only it had taken her this long to find him. When the old spy wanted to stay hidden he was very good at it. But those perverted giggles of his was what alerted her to his location. I'm just making sure the boy's first time goes okay, he said quickly. The boy came for some advice on women and I taught him what I could. I just was making sure he didn't have any problems, and if he did, see if I could find a way to help out. Well, that was partially true. He would help out the next day, but she didn't need to know that. Oh, really? She asked, not looking convinced. What makes you think he could use the help of an old pervert like you? Well, the tips seem to work so far. Plus, you didn't seem to mind those little muscle relaxation sessions, he grinned at her. Tsunade blushed a bit as she was reminded of that. So you're teaching him your perverted techniques? She accused him. She shouldn't have been surprised, after all, she had known him for years and this was just his kind of thing. It was amazing that Minato had turned out so well adjusted. Then again, maybe his wife had been the one to straighten him out and undo all the damage. I'll have you know those techniques have been used in the advanced seduction teachings in this village, and furthermore, oh wait, I think they're starting up again, he said as he took a look. That boy has a lot of energy and it's about time he put it to good use. Tsunade's eye twitched as she went a punch, making the old pervert fly off. She grunted in frustration as she hoped he would get the point and not peep on people in their private moments. Chapter 21. New Missions. It had been a couple of weeks since the marriage and things were starting to get back to normal. Temari's family had left the day after the wedding and later Jiraiya had to leave to continue on his own work. He said he would swing by Suna and take a look at Gaara's seal for them when he got the chance. For the married couple, things had only been calm for a few days before they had been given their first mission as a team. Apparently it had been one of those things that couldn't be avoided, as Kakashi needed to go for this mission and he couldn't leave them behind. Turns out that they had gone all the way to Snow Country to shoot some movie, which the main star turned out to be the princess of that country. Well, she hadn't acted like a princess, that was for sure. Temari and her had butted heads early on, but then it got even worse. They had been split up by these snow ninja and things had gone to hell at that point. Temari had been worried sick since Naruto had charged headlong and went to rescue their client. But in the end things turned out well. They found them and apparently Naruto must have knocked some sense into her. Temari still remembered that final battle with the dictator of that land, how he used the Rasengan and the rainbow of colors. She had never seen anything so beautiful or destructive. They had returned a week ago and things were getting slow again. Truth was, there was another thing that she and Naruto shared: they hated staying out of action for too long. So when they were told that they had a new mission, both were glad for some more action. Although Temari always kept her joy inside with the exception of maybe a smile, Naruto was the opposite and literally jumped for joy. Soon Team 7 made their way to the Hokage's tower and her office. Hey Granny, what's the new mission? Naruto asked as soon as they entered into the place. Temari sighed in embarrassment. No matter what she tried, she just couldn't get him to stop saying things like that. So had pretty much given up trying and just hoped that Tsunade wasn't in a foul mood. She could see the one of the Hokage's eyes twitch a little in annoyance, but she let it slide. I have a mission that I think Team 7 is perfect for. With the exception of Temari, you all remember your mission to wave, correct? The Hokage asked. Oh yeah, the drunk old bridge builder that lied about the mission and we ended up taking on a missing nin from Mist. Naruto spoke up. Tsunade gave a small glare at the boy. I wouldn't put it that way, but yes, that's the one. She sat back as she passed the scroll to Kakashi. Apparently some leftovers from Gato's organization are starting up trouble again. And the village asked for help, specifically Team 7. They're hoping that just you being there will make these rogues rethink harming the town again. Seems easy enough. Then again, so did the original mission. Kakashi sighed as he looked over the mission scroll. Nothing much was said, although the price being paid for was at least a B-rank mission. It was hard to say if Gato's people had hired any mercenaries or ninja, but he wouldn't put it past them. Before he had been killed, Gato had squeezed a lot of money out of the town. If his people had access to his wealth, there was no telling what they would have paid for. Well, this will be great, Sakura said happily. I mean, I've been wondering how they were doing since the bridge had been finished. I hope the town has turned around. Man, it seems like almost a lifetime ago when we were there, but it's only been like 6 months. Yeah, a lot has happened, huh? Naruto smiled as he looked at Temari, who gave a small smile back. Well, this should be interesting then. Kakashi smiled as he tucked the scroll away. Well, we'll get ready and leave in a few hours. Alright, and Naruto try to stay out of trouble, Tsunade told him. I read the report on the Snow Country mission. Remember that you and Temari are important symbols for the village, so try not to get yourself killed so early. Although it was just her being Hokage, she really was worried for the boy. He was around the same age as her little brother had been when he had been killed. The last thing she wanted was to lose him, plus she bet Temari would be just as hurt. She had seen the way she looked at him when she thought no one was looking. Tsunade could see the bond there between them. She would hate to see it broken one day. Ah, you worry too much, Naruto told her, just brushing it off. Besides, I can't die yet. I still haven't become Hokage, and you can bet that nothing will keep me from being the next Hokage. Despite everything, she smiled at that. Tsunade could see him as one day being Hokage. He just needed the time to grow into the man she knew he could be. It was times like this, she realized what Jiraiya must have seen in Naruto from day one. Sound base. Deep in one of the many secret bases of Orochimaru, the snake Sannin was currently taking the bandages off his new face. So far the transfer had gone well, but now it was time for the final touches, to put his original face back on. He applied the fake skin easily enough, and soon he was staring back into his pale face once more. Ah, I never get tired of this part. Like a snake shedding its skin. He chuckled to himself. He was currently in one of his private chambers, but honestly they all looked alike. They held only basic things, as he never really needed anything without some kind of function. There were books for his research, a table for certain experiments, and some candles that gave off some low light. That was mainly for others, as over the years he had developed his eyes to have great night vision. Lord Orochimaru. Kabuto bowed as he entered the room. He was the only one allowed to just enter whenever he felt like it, mainly because he only entered when summoned or had something to report. He knew his place, and that was rare to find these days. Yes, sir. Spies have reported that Team 7 is back on the move again. Kabuto had been given the message only an hour ago. Long ago, Orochimaru had set up his own spy network. After all, a man like him had to keep eyes on everyone with all the enemies he had, and all the plans he had to make. This was just another such example. He had been a careful watch on Team 7, mainly a certain member of the team. Since the boy had been gone too long, he couldn't use his body, but maybe that was for the best. If he could shape and mold the boy, he might make for a better host. But he would have to have the boy come to him willingly. He had a long time to think and plan on this. He had a few ideas, but the main one was to offer the boy everything he desired. And there was someone that would be able to help with that. Kabuto sent to Yuya. I have a mission for her. He said as Kabuto bowed and left. She would be perfect for his plans. Her past would help the boy trust her, and even the two might empathize with each other if they stayed in contact long enough. He had studied not just the physical side to humans, but what made them tick. Once you understood how a person worked, you could twist them and manipulate them to your own ends. Everyone had a weakness, such as Tsunade's love for her dead brother and lover. But he hadn't counted on their old teammate and that annoying little blonde boy. At any rate, he had a new body now, but he just needed to bring Sasuke to his side. He had failed with Itachi. The man was just too good, but those eyes were magnificent. He still remembered watching a young Itachi do things that even adult Jonin wouldn't have tried. When he had joined Akatsuki, it had been to gain more information and knowledge. Then the day when Itachi joined had been such a fortunately day, at least he had originally thought it. He had tried to sneak up behind him and poison him long enough to take his body, but Itachi had put him in a genjutsu even before he had known. Those eyes were powerful. Anyone who had them could reach heights that no other could. It was no wonder the name Uchiha had been feared for generations by other nations. But with Sasuke things were different. The boy wasn't as strong as Itachi, so it would be easier to take his body. But now that he had to wait 3 years before he could do it again, Orochimaru figured why not improve the boy some more. If he was going to take his body, then Orochimaru might as well make it the best body to have. It might even last longer than the 3 years an average body lasted. Oh, the things he would learn in just 1 year with a Sharingan, all the forbidden techniques that he alone would master. Maybe even figure out a way to give himself true immortality. There were limits to the resurrection technique, but he hoped to one day find a way to overcome them. You called for me, Orochimaru-sama. Tayuya said as she entered the small room with a bow. He grinned at the young girl. Yes, I have a mission that only you can do. What is it, Orochimaru-sama? She asked, standing a bit taller. The fact that she personally was being given this mission was a very big deal to her. Even though she was part of his personal guard, there was always room to grow in sound. I want you to follow Team 7, do not be seen unless it's unavoidable. You are to ensure that Sasuke is not harmed in any way and to study him. I want first-hand accounts of how well he is doing. Also, I want you to make contact with him. Contact. She was surprised by this, but she would be a lot more surprised when Orochimaru told her the entire plan for her. She knew that she would do it. She couldn't refuse an order from him, but still, this was going to be a very difficult mission for several reasons. Some time later, Team 7 had been taking the same route they had taken home the last time they had been to the village. It was fairly peaceful, which meant no ninja ambushing them from puddles or a mist suddenly showing up with one of the world's most deadly ninja in it. Although that didn't stop Naruto from being on alert, the entire trip he was actually eagerly looking forward to being ambushed. At first it was okay, but he was starting to get on everyone's nerves somewhat. It was no surprise when Sakura snapped first. She had been trying to control her temper lately with him, but you could only take so much. Naruto, will you stop it already? We are not going to be attacked on this road a second time. But you can never know what's out there, Naruto told her, still looking at the trees and bushes. Last time I was right when I threw that kunai. Law of averages, even idiots can be right one. Sasuke muttered. What was that? Temari said coldly to the boy. Sasuke just gave her a leveled look and turned his head. Temari was tempted to give him a talking to, but that wasn't her place on the team, at least not until he stepped way out of line. It was like dealing with a more emo version of Kankuro at times. Kakashi sighed as he watched things progress. He had thought that the teamwork had improved since the Land of Snow mission, although the team did seem a bit more closer. Maybe they were just stressed. That kind of thing happened and it affected people in their own ways. Maybe this would be good for the team after all to do this mission. This was Team 7's first real mission and it had been a good growing experience for them all. It would be interesting to see what had happened to the village with Gato gone all this time. After Sakura finally got Naruto to ease up, the trip went quieter now. After 2 more hours they were finally at the bridge. It looks like they had put up a sign up top for the name as well as some minor things like paint on certain parts. It was Temari that noticed the name first and stopped in her tracks. The hell? The Great Naruto Bridge. She smiled, giving Naruto an amused smile. He looked up at the bridge and was literally shocked to see the name of it. When they had left they hadn't heard what it would be called. Naruto blinked as he read the sign again just to be sure that he wasn't imagining things. Then he had a huge grin plastered on his face. This was by far one of the coolest things that had happened to him in his life. Already he was having things named after him. He was becoming one great ninja, at least in his own mind. He couldn't wait to get back and tell the others he has a bridge named after him. Naruto knew that Kiba's reaction would be the best, and Lee would try to get a mountain named after him. How come it gets named after Naruto? Sakura sighed, a bit disappointed. I mean, we were all there. Although she knew that she hadn't done much at all, that was kind of depressing thinking back on it. It was when Temari had shown up that Sakura didn't want to be that kind of ninja anymore, the kind that sat out the battles. She had done a lot better in Snow Country, but she planned to improve some more. Although Kakashi had taken on Zabuza alone, twice even. Plus Sasuke and Naruto had fought, so that was why Sakura felt the team should have been honored. She cast a look to Naruto, who looked happy. She felt a small smile tug on her lips as she watched how excited he was. She guessed it was only natural. Naruto craved attention, and having a bridge named after you was most likely the best kind he could have gotten in life. She just hoped that Temari would keep his ego in check. The last thing he needed was that to get even bigger. She had lost count of all the trouble he had gotten himself into by thinking how great a ninja he was. It wasn't until recently he was strong enough to make those boasts. Who knows? Kakashi shrugged, smiling. At any rate, we might as well go into town and see if we can track down the mayor's office, as the request was made through them. Then can we see Tazuna, Inari and Tsunami? Naruto asked, hoping that they could find them soon. He really wanted to see them again. Kakashi nodded. It shouldn't be too hard to find the time. I still need to see what the situation currently is and plan out what our next move will be. Naruto looked over to a certain spot as his face grew a bit more solemn as well. I think I'll also visit Haku and Zabuza too. They traveled along the giant bridge as they saw merchants and other people walking on it as well. By the time they crossed it, they looked around. The village sure had a turnaround since Gato's death. There were more businesses opened, shops and buildings that had been falling apart were being fixed up. The people also seemed to have changed the most. Once where there was this massive air of depression and poverty, there was nothing of the sort around. The people were wearing better clothing, looked a lot more well-groomed and better feed as well. Wow, and this place had been such a bump before, Naruto muttered. Naruto, Sakura said, giving him a slight smack to the head that wouldn't hurt. Don't say things like that out loud. She's right. You have got to learn to be more diplomatic, Temari told him. She allowed Sakura's disciplining of Naruto only if it was a light hit. She had gone over with the girl what was acceptable and what was not earlier. She needed help in making sure that Naruto learned what was acceptable, but she couldn't watching him all the time. So she had Sakura help out. She had been helping to keep Naruto in line and his ego in check even before she had joined the village. If Naruto wanted to become Hokage, it would not be an easy task, but she knew that he could do it. He just needed the help in becoming the best Hokage the world had seen. So does anyone know where to meet the clients? Sasuke asked. Everyone looked to Kakashi, who gave a pondering thought pose before he just shrugged. Everyone felt a little disappointed in that. There really hadn't been a mayor last time they were here after all, so they have no way to know where the building was located. That's it. I'm just going to ask someone. Naruto muttered as he looked around. He saw a group of kids around his age and decided to walk over to them. Hey there, do you know where the mayor's office is? The others turned around and for a moment they were going to answer, but then they noticed Naruto and the others. They also noticed the leaf symbol on Naruto's head. Everyone in the village knew of the leaf. In fact, ever since Team 7 had left the village, considered the Leaf Village ninjas heroes to their home. Especially those of Team 7, whom many of the kids had started to play in games. Many picked to be Kakashi, Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura in the streets was a commonplace. Others played the roles of Haku and Zabuza too, but it was Team 7 that was the most popular. One boy got over the shock of seeing actual Leaf Ninja in the village. Hey, are you guys from Konoha? Huh, yeah we are. In fact, this is our second time here. Naruto smiled at them. Second time? Wait. You guys aren't Team 7, are you? The boy said as his eyes widened as he looked them over. Not many had taken good looks at them, but their descriptions had passed through the village. He looked them over, seeing the blonde with strange marks on his cheeks, the tall adult with white hair and a mask and an eye cover. A girl with pink hair and red clothing, a boy with a handsome dark look to him. Temari, however, the boy couldn't place, he didn't remember more than one girl. Oh my god, it's them. Another boy shouted out. It really is Team 7. That got the attention of many other villagers who stopped to take a good look. There were quickly many people talking and whispering. Some would stare openly in amazement that the heroes had returned to their village. It was a little uncomfortable with the younger ones as they weren't used to it. Even Temari was feeling a little odd. Most likely because she had caught a few asking who she was, but it was the feeling she was getting from the people around them. In her own village, because of her status and her family, she wasn't very approachable. People had always kept their distance and there was a kind of forced respect and maybe a hint of fear. It had changed a bit when she moved to Konoha, but this was different than anything she had seen. Most of her missions had been the more dangerous kind and not many people knew about them. She had never saved a village before, so seeing how the people reacted with Team 7 made her a little envious. The people in Snow had been nice to them once the princess was put back in power. It was like that here, only more so. If they went back to Snow, would this be the kind of reception she could hope to have? There was a high-pitched squeal and suddenly one of the girls had latched onto Naruto full force in a giant glomp. Naruto wasn't used to this kind of affection from others, so he wasn't sure what to do. Besides, he was married now, he shouldn't let girls just do that, should he? Oh my god, I've wanted to meet you for so long. I saw you as you left but I couldn't get to see you. I'm one of your biggest fans. Me and the others think you're so cool and cute. Oh, I can't believe I said that. But it's all true. I can't believe you're back. The young green-haired girl said as she hugged him. Thanks. Naruto said, not sure what to do. Temari, however, did. She walked right up to the girl, grabbed the back of her shirt and yanked her off. She made sure it wasn't too hard but just hard enough to let the girl know that she was out of place. It would seem that Naruto had a fan club here. Well, obviously the news that he was off the market hadn't reached here. No surprise really. So now she planned to not only set this girl straight but anyone else as well. It was time to mark her territory to everyone. Hey, what the hell was that for? The girl said as she rubbed her butt where she had landed. That was to tell you to keep your hands off my husband, Temari said coldly to the girl. Everyone was shocked by the news as they looked at the two of them. Husband? Another girl in glasses asked, looking disappointed and surprised. Yes, I'm Temari Uzumaki, wife of Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm very protective of him. So please let any other girl know that he's mine. I don't mind you being friendly with him. In fact, I encourage it, but there are limits I will not tolerate. Is that clear? Temari crossed her arms as she gave a very commanding presence. It was no small wonder. She was the daughter of the last Kage of Suna. She was one of the strongest genins in both Konoha and Suna, for both females and males. There was no way she was going to let any girl make Naruto uncomfortable or try and steal him away. Naruto made her happy in life, happier than she had ever been honestly, and she wasn't going to lose it. Plus she still wasn't done with making Naruto's dreams a reality. Kakashi sighed. It looked like they were in for a very unique experience with this mission. He just hoped that a jealous wife wouldn't kill any of the civilians. This was the reason why he preferred those missions that didn't involve lots of exposure. You did your job, got paid for it, and only the ninja would know. When the civilians knew of your accomplishments, that could only made things harder. It would be harder to move around unnoticed, and most likely if the enemy had men planted in the village, by nightfall they would already know they were here. Chapter 22. Reunion. Team 7 made their way through it village. It was still a little odd seeing people take notice of them, but they were slowly getting used to it. They also noticed a few more things. That was that people seemed to have taken to wearing colors associated with the team. A lot of boys were wearing blues, whites and lots of orange apparently. The girls took to not only wearing more red, but Sakura noticed that several young girls had pink highlights. It was kind of flattering after all. Besides he mother, there was no one else in Konoha had pink hair. Eventually they found themselves to the mayor's residence. Wasn't really that impressive given that this was mainly a fishing village. They were led into the building immediately and into the office of the new mayor. It wasn't much, as the paint even looked fresh. The mayor turned out to be pretty average looking, an older man with thinning gray hair, but looked like he spent most of his time working outside with a deep tan and weathered features. I'm so glad that Konoha was able to send the team I asked for. The mayor smiled as he got up behind his desk walking towards them. He walked with a bit of a limp, it would seem, from his left leg. I take it you're the mayor of the town and our employer, Kakashi stated. That would be me. I'm Hiroshi Uchiyamada. We haven't had a mayor since the dark times as Gato killed the last one. But since I can't fish like I used to, my wife thought politics would be the way to go. The man laughed at his own personal joke. Hell, I thought this would be easy, but we never thought that the ghost of our past would come back to us like this. What can you tell me about this man that you said in your report? Kakashi asked. Hiroshi sighed as he sat back down behind his desk. When I heard the story at first I didn't want to believe it, but honestly from all the reports I felt that it was best to be on the safe side. As you know, thanks to your efforts we regained our pride. When this man calling himself Kane showed up and demanded tribute, the people were not going to stand for it. After all, we had just gotten free of one tyrant and didn't want to be put under the thumb of another. But it would seem that he learned a few things from Gato. Like what? Naruto asked. It would see he brought his own ninja as well, the mayor sighed. When the people were gathering around them, 4 cloaked people showed up out of nowhere. They threw several of those knife weapons that you were seen carried. You mean these? Naruto asked, pulling out a kunai. Yes, like that. Well, we may be brave people and we can stand up to normal criminals now, but there is no way we can handle ninja. Several people were injured in the first few moments and many shops were damaged. It could have been worse, but apparently he was giving us a warning. The tribute he wanted is much less than what Gato did to us. We could still live on much better, but we all agreed not to bow down again to a man like that. So you called for ninja to fight the ninja, Kakashi surmised. After all, civilians couldn't handle those trained to fight and kill since children. Then we'll just kick their asses and that Kane guys as well. Naruto yelled out, grinned ear to ear as usual. The mayor smiled at the boy's spirit. That is what we hoped for. Can you tell us where the ninja come from? Temari asked, speaking up after hearing the story. It would help to know which village they were dealing with or if they were renegades. I'm sorry, but no one could get a good look. They appeared on the buildings and no one could see much of what they looked like, he told her. Kakashi thought about that as he had been thinking the same thing as Temari. This would complicate things a bit more as he was certain the enemy would know of them, but not knowing who they were up against, that put them at a disadvantage. They couldn't even be sure the numbers, as 4 could have been anything from all of them or some of them. After the meeting with the mayor, they were on their way to look in on some old friends. Naruto was nearly bouncing by the time they got to the house. Temari looked at the place, a 2-story wooden home. It looked like it could use some new paint, but it looked kind of homey. She looked to Naruto and she couldn't remember the last time he seemed so excited. Then again, these people were friends he had made and hadn't seen since he left. She gave a small smile at how happy he looked at the moment. Naruto himself wanted to race up to the front door and knock, but he wanted to wait for everyone. He wondered how the family had been doing since he had been gone, especially how Inari was. When they first got here, the boy had been so deep in his own pain he lashed out at the world. But the last he had seen him, he had a new life in him. That made Naruto happy. He knew what it was like to live in the darkness. He had overcame it. He had done so with Inari and Gaara. Although he wasn't too sure how he did that, he was just glad for it. It just felt like a personal victory for him whenever that happened. By the time they came to the front door, Naruto knocked and waited. He heard someone walking to the door. I'll be right there, a woman's voice called out. He knew it was Tsunami. Tsunami opened the door. She had been working on a few things to fix in the home. Ever since her husband had died, she had to take care of such things, with her father working and Inari too young for such work. She didn't mind it. She took pride in her family and home. Plus, with all the new merchants in the village and trade, she could finally get decent materials for the home and for the meals. That last thing she expected to see were the heroes of the village outside her door when she opened it. Hey Tsunami-san. Naruto said happily to her. Naruto. And the rest of you, what are you doing back here? Tsunami was overjoyed at the sight of them all. We're back here on a mission, Kakashi told her. Apparently we still have to deal with the fallout of the last time we were here. Oh, I've heard about that, but I didn't expect you all to come back. Tsunami looked to Temari, noticing a new member of the team. Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you? Temari Uzumaki. Temari said to her. I'm the new member of Team 7. Oh, I didn't know that Naruto had. Tsunami started up before Temari interrupted her. I'm not his sister. The ex-Suna nin sighed. She was getting sick and tired of this. Was it the blonde hair that did it? Sure, blonde wasn't a very common hair color, but still, she didn't look anything like him beyond that. She's actually my wife. Naruto grinned nervously as he starched the back of his head. It was kind of funny seeing Tsunami's eyes widen so large that they might fall out of her head. The last thing she expected was to have Naruto married at his young age, although the girl seemed to be a bit older but pretty. After the shock wore off, she invited them inside. Thankfully, it was fully explained to her how Naruto could be married. She didn't know that ninja villages had such politics after hearing the whole story. Then again, her county didn't have any ninja of their own, and this was just a fishing village. She had no way to know that the great nations were so much more complicated. Although through the story she did notice that things between Naruto and Temari, the two would share looks and she noticed the closeness with each other. She had to smile seeing them, they were obviously close, which was nice for a political marriage. So, what can you tell us about what is going on? Kakashi asked as soon as they had finished their own story. I thought you were already at the mayor's office. Tsunami asked. We were, but it never hurts to get other sides to the story. To get the whole picture, it's best to get multiple sources, that way you can get information that might have been left out by accident or design. Kakashi explained, never once looking up from his book. Makes sense to me, Temari stated, plus officials only get the information after it's been disseminated by others. Huh. Naruto blinked. She means after a bunch of people have looked through all the information and it's been cut up and only the high points talked about, Sakura explained as she guessed that Naruto had never heard of the word disseminate. Then again, it wasn't really an average word. Oh, that makes sense. Naruto figured that the people in charge needed to know only the major points or they would be at work all day. He just put that piece of information away when he was Hokage one day. Well, anyway, what I know is that some time after you left, a man named Kane showed up. Tsunami told them pretty much the same story as the mayor. There were a few things, as she had been in the village market when the man showed up. So they got a first-hand account of the man, and those that had come with him. But nothing much else that they could find out. She hadn't seen the symbols of the ninja either. Although Kakashi knew there was little chance of anything new, it was best to be certain. Hey mom, we're home. Inari's voice was heard as footsteps came closer to the room. Inari came into the room with a small bag of new food while his grandfather was behind him with the larger bag. The two had been asked to get some new items at the market for the home. As soon as Inari saw who was in their home, the little boy's face lit up. He dropped his bag and ran up and hugged Naruto. Naruto, you're back. Naruto laughed as he ruffled the boy's head through his ever-present hat. Hey there. Nice to see you again. Well, I take it that you guys are back for the trouble that's been happening, Tazuna said as he had heard that the new mayor was going to hire some protection. Calling in Team 7 was a good political move as it would be popular with the people and it was a group that could be trusted. The old bridge builder had even been offered the job as he had been the one to build the Great Bridge and brought the team here in the first place. But he was a builder, not a damn politician, and he would have been miserable in that job. He wasn't sure on the new mayor that had been elected, but this gave him a good mark in Tazuna's book. It was then he noticed the young blonde woman with them. She had that ninja air about her, but she was a tad different. The girl's posture was straight and she had this air of authority about her. So who's the new girl? Tazuna asked. Temari sighed as she got the feeling she would have to go through this many times. Thankfully she was saved going through it by Naruto. This is Temari-chan. My wife, she's pretty great, isn't she? Naruto beamed as Temari blushed a bit. She quickly tried to hide it. She wasn't used to being praised like that to strangers, plus it was Naruto doing the praising. Huh, you got married. Inari said, his eyes as wide as his mother's had been. Naruto chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, kind of a long story. After going through it yet again, they all got caught up on what had been going on in the villages. The marriage between Naruto and Temari as well as her new status as a leaf ninja was the major topic. Another was how Tazuna had started up new contracts for 2 more bridges as well as materials that he made being sent to the rebuilding of Konoha. Naruto had never thought about where all the building materials came from, but given Tazuna's reputation it would seem he was in high demand. Plus he also apparently gave Konoha a slight cut in price as the village was responsible for their good fortunes. Inari had started up school again as they finally got the money to pay for teachers again. He didn't seem to like it much, but he had been making new friends lately. He also said how he wanted to follow in his grandfather's footsteps and become a great builder himself, much to the old man's pride. Tsunami apparently had also started up a small group made up of other housewives. It didn't really have a name. Mainly they helped to organize cleanup and restoration of the village as well as helping others get back on their feet. Team 7 was amazed at how much had been done since they had last came here. But soon the sun was starting to fall and Kakashi said they had to make plans on where to stay. Well, I'm certain that I can find some room for you all, Tsunami offered. It really wasn't a big deal for them all to put up with Team 7 again. Actually, we'll be staying at the inn this time, Kakashi told her. Last time you were targeted because of your father, but if we stay here then you'll all be targets again. I'm sure that our arrival hasn't gone unnoticed and I would prefer a place that wasn't your property. If a battle broke out I can't guarantee your safety as you're not our clients. Plus I would rather not have you all used as hostages. Tsunami remembered how those two men had come to take her and her son. They had Inari and was threatening to kill him. She had even threatened to kill herself to prevent anything happening to her son. She really didn't want to go through that all over again. If Naruto hadn't shown up, she didn't want to think on it. But don't worry, I'm sure you'll be seeing us, Kakashi smiled at them all. Village Inn. Later that night Naruto went into his shared room with Temari. He looked around but so far no one was around. He went to the bathroom and opened the door. He froze as he saw his young wife's back as she was sitting up in the tub drying herself off. He gulped as he gazed at her smooth back, her hair still wet. She always looked good like that, he thought to himself. Oh sorry, I didn't know you were still in here. He blushed at the sight of her. Even though they were married and had been intimate on their wedding night, it was still a little nervous around her like this. He just wasn't totally used to it, but it was getting there. Temari herself was still getting used to the idea of her husband seeing her naked. She looked to the wall to hide her own blush. It's okay, I was just finishing up, you can bath now. She got out of the tub and wrapped the towel around herself. Naruto swallowed as he nodded his head. He had his own night clothes and other things under one arm as he couldn't help but look at her. She was still very pretty and he knew exactly what was under that towel. He blushed a bit more remembering how he knew and suddenly felt his throat dry. He also really liked it when her hair was loose like it was now. His eyes traveled down to her legs and he had never really been the type of guy to really look at a girl's parts before. But Temari was making him into a leg man recently. They were so long and looked very nice to him. Temari noticed him staring and felt her face heat up. She wasn't used to being viewed like this, but it felt nice to be desired. Normally no one in her village would even dare to think any impure thoughts about her, plus those that did were the lecherous types and usually a hard glare from her made them quickly move away. But with Naruto it was different. He didn't see her as just some kind of object, he saw her as a woman. She was reminded again of today and how girls would look at him and blush, giggle and make eyes at him. She didn't like that. This was her man, but Naruto never once took advantage of it. He only had eyes for her and that made her happy too. He was totally loyal and she knew she could trust him with anything. It was the other girls she didn't trust. Temari-chan. Temari snapped out of her thoughts looking at Naruto who had stopped taking his clothing off. She could see his bare top and the ever-present necklace he wore. Are you staying? Naruto asked, blushing a bit. Temari felt embarrassed. He might be thinking she wanted to watch, although a part of her mind said that wasn't a bad idea. She didn't think this was the time or place. Sorry, my mind was somewhere else. She quickly exited the room as she dried off and put on a robe and waited for him. Naruto was enjoying himself in the bathtub. He had refilled it with some more hot water and sighed as he sat in it. So far this had been a unique day. It was nice seeing Inari and his family again, but he couldn't get over how weird it was being looked at as a hero. Sure, he had always dreamed of this moment and said how he would be great one day. But he never knew what it would be like. Yeah, it felt great, but he would have to get used to it. His mind also went back to Temari who had been in this tub before him. He swallowed at the thought of her naked body had been here. Sure, they had gotten very close, but it still embarrassed them at times to be so intimate with each other. Although he did smile at the memories of when they were together alone, he wondered if all marriages were like this. Then again, he had only known Temari only a short time while most couples knew each other for much longer. But still, he was enjoying married life. It was nice to have someone that you could turn to, someone that would walk beside you for your life. For the first time the last piece of loneliness that he felt in his heart was gone. As he made friends that loneliness grew smaller and smaller, but a small amount stayed. It hadn't bothered him, but with Temari he couldn't feel even that small piece anymore. He sighed as he thought of the things they had done and all the things they would do together in the future. When the water turned cold he decided he had been in there long enough. Naruto changed into a robe that the hotels usually had and walked into the room. She saw that Temari had the futon out and prepared. You didn't fall asleep in the water, did you? Temari asked as he had been in there for a while. I was thinking of checking to make sure you didn't drown. Naruto got a grin on his face as an idea came to him. You know we're married, you don't need excuses to see me naked or join me, you could have just asked. Temari's face blushed full red at what he said, be baka. Don't say such perverted things like that. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at her expression. I'm just teasing Temari-chan, but you look so cute like that. Temari didn't say anything as she turned her face to avoid him looking at her blush. Just get into bed. Naruto chuckled as they got into the same futon. Ever since that night they had made love, they slept in the same bed. It was then that he learned something personal about Temari. She was a cuddler. Either with a pillow or him. He remembered waking up one morning as she had pulled his face into her breasts. Not totally a bad experience, but it was a shock to wake up like that. He slipped under the sheets as he stared up into the ceiling. Hey, Temari-chan. Yeah, I'm really glad things worked out like they did, he said smiling, and I kind of look forward to how things go with us. Temari felt herself smile as she turned around and Naruto moved his arm to let her get closer. She placed her head on his shoulder and wrapped an arm around his waist. It always felt nice being like this, with him so close to her. She had never felt such closeness in her life until recently, and she too was looking forward to their future together. Me too, Naruto-kun. She whispered as she started to feel her body relax against him. She could hear his heartbeat and it sounded like it was going a little fast. Temari smirked as she thought of a way to get back at him. Is someone excited? Maybe a bit. Naruto blushed a bit. It wasn't easy to not get excited. The robes weren't too thick and he could feel her breasts pressing up against him. Temari smiled as she not moved herself to be over top of him. Naruto looked to see her robe slowly come undone a little. He could see her cleavage at the moment and any thoughts of sleep were being pushed away. Temari noticed where his eyes were going and smiled a little. It always felt nice when he noticed her body when they were alone. Sure, she had been a little jealous of all the attention he had been getting from all the girls. She had noticed a few of the boys giving her some looks, but she ignored them. Civilians didn't interest her in the bit. Besides, no one could match up to Naruto, plus another thing she had been thinking about. Although they slept together, they hadn't been intimate since their first night as a married couple. They had been on missions and it was never the right time or place. But they were alone in a hotel room, and to be honest, she wanted to feel like a wife again. To be loved by her husband was an experience that she was learning that was addictive. You know, I'm kind of not tired at the moment, she told him. Really? Naruto said nervously. Temari nodded as she leaned down and kissed him gently. She felt his hands on her waist as their kiss deepened. Naruto felt himself get more and more awake as he had one hand move down to her ass and gently kneaded it. He felt her moan into his mouth as she gently pulled back from him. Do you have any ideas on what we can do before we feel tired? She asked him with a smirk. Sakura yawned as she traveled the hallway. She had gone for a bit of a walk, feeling a little restless. Now she was going to her own room. It was odd having her own room for a change. Usually she would share with the others, but they were given a very good deal on the rooms. Kakashi and Sasuke were sharing one. Temari and Naruto were given their own room, and that left her the odd one out. She didn't mind. Naruto did snore, and apparently Temari was a heavy sleeper as she had never noticed. She smirked at that. Temari was lucky for that. She wasn't sure how she could deal with sleeping with a husband that did that. She blushed at the thought of something like that. She hoped that now Naruto wasn't always trying to ask her out, she could concentrate more on Sasuke. But he just seemed as cold as usual. She sighed. She was getting stronger as a ninja but not getting any closer to getting Sasuke to like her as a woman. She passed by one of the doors when she thought she heard a muffled sound. She looked and it was Naruto and Temari's room. Was there trouble already? She remembered how Kakashi said that if the enemy knew where they were, they might attack. She leaned towards the door to make sure she hadn't heard wrong, although she would soon regret that. She could finally make out the sounds as well as some talking. Oh God, right there. That's the spot. Temari's muffled voice could be heard. This feels even better than last time, Naruto said back. Temari moaned something that Sakura couldn't make out, but her eyes widened as she suddenly realized what was going on. She pulled her head back and covered her mouth from making any kind of noise. Her face was all red as her eyes were wide in shock. She quickly ran to her room and hoped that she could forget what she had heard. She never meant to overheard something like that. It would be a long night for Sakura as it would be for the newlywed couple close to her room, but for different reasons. Elsewhere, miles away from the village, there was an old fort. This had once been used in the age before ninja. When the lands were ruled by many feudal lords, in fact it was just one of many. All over the known world you could find these places that remained of the old days. Many had been taken by lords or dukes over the years, many others fell into disrepair, some like this one fell into the hands of companies or other rich men and women of power. This had once been Gado's base of operations in the land of Wave, that is until his death. Now it served a new master, Kane. Kane had been a high-up employee of Gado, one of many in fact. He had been running the smuggling side of things when he had heard that Gado had been killed. As soon as word spread, every member of the organization with ambition went for the empty seat of power. For months a bloody feud over it took the lives of many. Many more were hired to replace the small armies of thugs, villains and criminals. Many hadn't the foresight to last long, using all their money and resources on manpower, others using them to hire assassins. Kane had been different. He held back as he had slowly built up his own empire. With his smuggling he had a large amount of money coming in. It wasn't easy to keep it running when others tried to move in on his turf. But with proper planning he had waited for the other main factions to bloody themselves enough so that they were weak. It was then in one fell swoop he came out of nowhere and smashed the others. He knew that he had to make an example, to show that he was the one to rule now. He killed the leaders and their highest minions and absorbed the rest into his own forces. Now he led the remains of the old gang as well as all the new members. He had been slowly regaining the territories lost in the Gado's fall. It was now that he had his sights on one of the last remaining areas, and he was starting with the very place Gado was killed. Although Kane had seen the profits of squeezing villages dry, it was short-sighted. You can't get blood from a stone and you can only bleed the people until there is nothing left. But he hadn't been in charge then, now things were different. He used intimidation and fear for the people like before, but the tribute was lowered. The villages and businesses would pay, and although the profit wasn't as much, it would last much longer. Besides, he had plans to expand his criminal empire. But lately he had heard disturbing rumors and sent a few men to see for himself if they were true. The office was large, just as Gado had left it, but Kane had changed the decor a bit for his own tastes. There were less gaudy and more stylized pieces of art and items. The large desk was made out of pure oak and his chair had a long back, almost making it look like a throne. Everything was made to be larger than life and to intimidate. Kane himself was a taller man than Gado was. Although his hair held strands of gray, his face looked like it had been chiseled out of rock. At the moment he was looking at one of the men that had been infiltrating the village. So, the village has hired ninja again then? Kane asked, hearing the report. Yes sir. But not just any team. This is the team that was responsible for Gado's death on the bridge, sir. Kane had another difference than Gado, that was he knew that ninja weren't to be trifled with. With their abilities with that chakra stuff, they were far more dangerous than any of his normal men. He had a feeling that if he tried anything with that village they might seek out help again. Now it would seem that Kane would have to use them again after all. It would be expensive, but it couldn't be helped. Very good. Get back there and keep an eye on things. I need a full report on the entire team if you can, and send in Gray. I need him to deliver a message for me. Kane dismissed his man and was left alone to brood on this. Things were getting dangerous now. He had to play this out carefully or he could suffer the same fate as Gado had. Chapter 23. Trouble on the Way. The next morning saw the team having breakfast together with Tazuna and the rest of his family. Kakashi didn't mind spending time with the family, it was good to see them actually. Too many times missions he had done in the past had been bloody, horrible and things that had been done in the shadows. Sure, it made their current mission a bit difficult, but it was nice to see that a ninja can impact the world in a positive way. He had to admit that his team had done a lot for the town, maybe in some way it evened out his karma in life. His thoughts drifted through, back home. Looking at everyone here happy around a breakfast table, when had been the last time he had ever been in a position like this? His own mother died when he had been so very young that he barely remembered her, and his father, well, he had killed himself when Kakashi had been 11 years old. Ever since then he had lived alone, ate alone at home, cooked for himself and everything else. After the deaths of Rin, Obito and Minato, he had shut out the world for a long time before others managed to open him up some. Now looking around the table, it felt a bit alien to him. He put on a good face, but he was always good at masking his real emotions. In fact, it had only been recently that things had been slightly different with him, mainly thanks to a certain purple-haired ninja. His mind drifted to Anko. Ever since they started well, whatever it was between them, after sex they would be too tired and just fell asleep. It had been odd the first time. That morning after hadn't exactly been easy. Neither one was sure what to say or do, but by now they had a decent routine. Plus a few ground rules, mainly whose place they were at. They did the cooking in the morning. It was why he had a fresh stock of green tea, as she apparently loved that stuff almost as much as Dango, a surprise to him. She also kept a few things he liked as well at her place. Thinking of Anko brought out confusing emotions in him, things he hadn't really felt before. When she was around he felt a bit calmer, well on the inside, with Anko around things were never truly calm. The woman was full of energy, mischievous, and so things were never dull. But that's what made life more interesting. Even her faults, like how she kept rearranging his stuff because she claimed her system was superior. Well, he did the same to her place in retaliation. Little games like that he found himself enjoying. But they were just friends, were they? Then again, how many friends had sex together was another question. It had been her idea after all not to complicate things, and he felt the same. So why did things suddenly feel more complicated? At any rate, he looked around and something was odd. For some reason Sakura was very quiet. She looked like she hadn't gotten much sleep for some reason, and she kept avoiding looking at Naruto and Temari's direction. At first he thought she was angry at either one or both of them, but there was no malice in it. In fact, the one time he caught her looking up and had to answer a question Temari asked, the young pink-haired Gert would blush and quickly look away after she answered. That got Kakashi's interest, as whatever was going on seemed to give him the impression he missed something funny. He mentally shrugged as he thought of what to do next. It was obvious that by now there would be spies already in the town looking for them and reporting back. If he could find those and maybe track them back to whenever this cane was based, they could take the fight to him and avoid any combat in the village. It would help matters from a tactical point. The only problem was how to flush out any spies. He looked at his team. It was a little manipulative, but in the ninja world that was how their life worked. If could have his team go out among the town, and he could have his ninja dogs in the shadows watching. With their senses they could tell if someone would be following them, then the dogs could backtrack them to their boss. The only problem was if the opposition had hired ninja of their own, then they would find his dogs. Thankfully they knew to go back to where they came from if things got nasty, but it was still a risk. But then, risk was what their lives were about. If they wanted a safer life they should have become civilians. Well then, while we're here, why don't you four go out for a bit? Kakashi smiled at them. Huh? What about out mission? Naruto asked. Well, I'm going to look for some information. Unless we know where this cane person is, the only thing we can do is simply wait for him to show up. Kakashi explained to the four of them. Is that wise? Temari asked the Jonin. What if they send people into the village while we're just out like that? That's why you'll be in teams of two. Kakashi smiled at them. I want you two always together just in case of that same thing. This way you won't be caught alone and you can cover each other. There was a moment's pause. The kids weren't too sure, although it would be nice to see how the village had prospered. Kakashi threw in that they could also train for a bit if they wanted to. That was all it was needed to get Naruto fired up. Plus he wanted to show Inari the new moves he learned since he had last been here. Temari of course decided to go with her young husband, since she felt like a bit of training, also to keep an eye on him. Well, more of any pushy girls. She trusted Naruto, but the boy didn't know how to handle girls. That left Sakura and Sasuke. Said boy didn't show much enthusiasm, although Sakura was glad to have some space from the married couple. She still couldn't look at them without visuals of what she had heard last night. Eventually Sakura offered to help Tsunami with shopping as a way to repay for the woman's hospitality. Plus it brought back memories of her first visit to this place as well. Hopefully the stores would be better stacked and she wouldn't find children going hungry in the streets. Naruto and Temari. Naruto and Temari ended up going for a bit of training. Inari wanted to join in, at least to watch. He hadn't seen what Team 7 did last time and he really wanted to see what new things Naruto learned and also what Temari could do. So they walked to the lake that was near the town with the forest in it. It was isolated and a perfect place to train, although it was also very nostalgic with Naruto as he looked around the area. Team 7 learned to climb trees. On the way they seemed to pick up a few others, mainly boys and girls ranging from Temari to Inari's ages. It seemed that they would have a bit of an audience. Naruto of course loved the attention. Temari not so much. All these people would make training harder and she knew that Naruto's focus would be messed up because of it as well. Naruto led the way as he still remembered how to get to the area. He stopped at two trees and smiled looking at them. What is it? Temari asked walking up to him. See those marks? Naruto pointed at all the cuts into the two trees. This is where we learned how to tree climb. Sakura-chan made it in one go, but me and Sasuke spent hours trying to get up it. Temari smirked at the sight of all the marks on the trees. At least he was as bad as you seem to have been. Yeah, hey, wait a minute. Naruto turned to his smirking wife. You're too easy to tease, you know that. She smiled at him. Not for the first time. Naruto was wondering if teaching her how to joke around and relax had been a good thing. Well, he could always find a way to get back at her later. It was one of the little games they played with each other and they made sure they didn't cross any lines either. So what's the new stuff you learned, huh? Inari asked the older boy. Naruto grinned as he saw the perfect thing, a very large rock that was the perfect shape and size. He could use a tree, but honestly he wasn't sure which way the tree would fall. Getting some civilians killed by a falling tree in training wouldn't be a good thing. He started off with a clone as usual as he got into the right position. What's he doing? I've already seen this before. Inari wondered. Just wait, Temari said, smiling at Naruto. What you're about to see is something very few people get to see. Only 3 people that I know of this technique. Naruto used the clone to mold the chakra that he gathered and formed his most powerful move. He dispelled the clone as he slammed the Rasengan into the giant rock. The ball of destructive chakra slowly chewed through the stone like it was nothing. In a few seconds the Rasengan went right through the rock, splitting it into several pieces. Naruto pulled his hand back to avoid it getting caught in the shards as he looked back to the group. He couldn't help himself grinning at the sight of everyone in awe of his jutsu. He couldn't help but love the attention. In a ninja village it was hard to impress people, but here where ninja were more heard of than seen, it was a lot easier. Hey Temari-chan, how about you show them what you can do? Naruto asked his wife. If they were impressed by that, then he could bet they would be really impressed. Temari's jutsus were very powerful and a sight to behold. Temari looked over the lake and nodded to herself. This would be the perfect place for her style of training. She doubted that clear-cutting the forest would win her points, although she did learn that logging and crafting was a secondary industry for this village. The lake is a much better training area. She pulled her iron fan out from behind her. She opened it up all the way to 3 moons. She wanted to really let loose for some reason. Maybe it was also to show just how strong she was, and yet another way to show to those girls she noticed looking at Naruto, that if they wanted him they had to get through her first. It was strange, she was never this possessive in her life before, but Naruto was the exception. As everyone saw the fan unfold, many had no idea that the large item she carried had been a huge fan. Inari looked at it confused on how that could be used as weapon and decided to say so. Why do you have a fan? I thought ninja carried really cool weapons. The young boy asked, not noticing the slight tick Temari got. She hated it when people bad-mouthed her choice in weapon just because it wasn't a more standard ninja weapon. Thankfully for the boy, Naruto stepped in. Oh, trust me, Temari-chan's fans are awesome. She can make huge wind blasts. I've seen her slice up trees in training with them. Temari smiled hearing Naruto's voice. She could feel the pride he had in her. That was something she rarely felt in her life. There had only been Baki and one other that ever praised her skills. Hearing that make her think back to those times. Both the good and the bad, but she pushed that away as she got herself ready. Wind Scythe Jutsu. She shouted as she swung the iron fan before her. Raging winds blew out of the fan as the water of the lake looked like it was in the middle of a storm. The water splashed all over the place as it was displaced by the winds, large waves were formed. Even the water that rose up looked like it was being cut and then sent out. It was a powerful and awesome sight to hold for all the non-ninja that looked on. Temari moved the fan behind her with the grace of a dancer as she looked back at everyone. Wow, Temari-san is so cool. One of the females shouted out and soon many were looking at Temari with what could only be described as naked admiration. Temari wasn't used to being praised like that. She tried to hold back a blush not wanting to seem too eager for it. Naruto however couldn't help but smile at how people were accepting Temari. Seeing her like this he felt a sense of pride and something else burning inside of him. He paused as he really looked at her, holding her fan out with the water behind her, the sun hitting her just right. He really did like her. Actually it was more than that, he was sure. Temari was the first he told his secret to and accepted him, the first girl he kissed, and well, also the first girl he lost his virginity to. He felt a slight blush at those memories, although they had only done that a few times. He now saw what the big deal was with sex. Although it didn't seem like just simple sex to him, but something more. But looking at Temari now and thinking back to everything he felt, this warmth flooded his chest. Was love really felt like? He wondered, was he really falling in love with Temari? They spent all that time together, slept in the same bed, and did all kinds of things together. She filled his life in ways he never knew before. Plus she looked so beautiful in that moment, so powerful, so pretty and confident. He was glad that he was put into this arranged marriage. At first he had been so worried it would have been an empty one, but it wasn't. I think her moves are even better than yours, Inari said, grinning up at the boy. Huh. Hey, wait a minute, the Rasengan was created by the fourth Hokage and only the greatest ninja know of it. It's just a ball. Did you see what she just did though? That was really awesome. Inari said back to Naruto. Naruto just sighed. Was his jutsu really not all that flashy? Well, no matter, he still felt the Rasengan was the coolest thing he had. Although maybe he should start with his wind training while Temari was here, he still could use the help and then he could use his own kick-ass wind jutsus as well. Sakura and Sasuke. The two other members of Team 7 were walking in the business district of the village. Sakura could really tell the difference. The stands had not only more items but in better quality. She already had a small bag worth of food that Tsunami needed. She cast a worried look to Sasuke. The boy hadn't said a word the entire time. She tried to get him to talk but he only communicated in nonverbal ways. She was starting to worry about him as lately he had been a bit more distant with everyone. Ever since he had been put into the hospital by his older brother Itachi, there had been this darkness inside of him. She didn't know the full details, but something had obviously happened. Sasuke had been thinking long and hard while Sakura shocked, mainly about his lack of power. When he heard that Itachi was after Naruto, he had run off to his teammate. Finally, after all these years, he had met his brother since that day Itachi had killed everyone. All the pain and rage he had kept inside of his heart exploded upon seeing him. He tried his strongest attack that he learned from Kakashi, and what did it get him? He was thrown down like a doll. The power his brother had was more than he had thought. Sasuke honestly thought he was strong, but that day he had seen truth strength. Then he had looked into his brother's eyes and was thrust back into that hellish nightmare for 3 days. It had just been too much. He had been put into a coma from just that one technique. But it felt like forever for him. All these years, all the training, all the blood and sweat, it had been all for nothing. He was still weak. He needed power. Real power to crush Itachi and avenge all those the man had slaughtered. He hadn't seen all the bodies that night, but he knew that Itachi had slaughtered without mercy. Men, Women, elderly, even the children were killed, innocent ones that had no reason to be killed. His own parents as well, leaving him all alone in the world. He always wondered why he had lived and everyone else had been killed. Was it just because he was Itachi's brother? Was there some reason for it? Well, Sasuke didn't care for the reason. As long as he breathed, Itachi would die for his sins. But not as he was now. Sasuke needed to train more and to learn a lot more. But where would he get that from? Kakashi was training them all equally, but it was slowing his own training. Sakura was a weak link in the team since day one. At least Temari was competent. In fact, he was feeling a bit envious of Naruto at the moment. Temari was a fine specimen of a female ninja, someone like that was the type of woman Sasuke wanted to help him revive his clan. Only a strong woman would do. It was a shame that they chose Naruto. Although why they chose the idiot was beyond him. It was just another thing that made no sense. Why did Naruto suddenly get so much stronger in these last few months? In the academy he had been the loser, the dead last all the time. Yet it had been Naruto that had defeated Gaara, that had defeated that masked ninja in Wave with the ice mirrors, both enemies that he couldn't beat, and yet the idiot had. It was Naruto that got training by one of the legendary Sannin. Why? What made him so special? There was nothing special about him, and yet he kept getting stronger and trained by legends. That was why he had started to train in his curse mark in secret. He knew Kakashi wouldn't let him, but he needed that power. But it wasn't enough. The learning was slow and he didn't know enough about the curse mark. He needed something more, but he didn't know what. His mind being pulled back into the present, he looked around the area. Sakura was buying something and he looked on. A few girls were pointing and giggling at him, most likely saying how cute he was and other such things girls had been saying about him since he could remember. Personally, he could care less what they said. Something caught his eye as he thought he saw movement in the corner of his vision. He carefully looked again, but whatever it was gone now. Maybe it had been his imagination, but he swore he felt a presence following them. He shrugged it off as they continued on. Not far away in an alleyway a figure loomed in the shadows. Sasuke had been right that someone had been following them. In fact, they had been shadow for quite some time. As the two genins went on, the figure kept their distance as the two were followed. Elsewhere, Urshui never was one for tracking, even if he was one of the ninja hounds that Kakashi used. The white dog with the blue vest was one of the 8-dog team that was assigned to Kakashi Hatake after he had signed the contract with them years ago. Personally, he liked being given to Kakashi because the man always was given good missions, and he still remembered that one with that mist ninja that tasted like blood and water. He didn't bother remembering names, especially the ones of the enemy. But although he was great at attacking, he, like the other dog bull, preferred actual combat. But that was not the case this time. This time their summoner wanted them to keep an eye on the kids. He had been following the one that smelled like a fox and ramen, with the one that smelled of the dessert. He had been hiding all that time, but finally he had noticed a strange scent in the trees. He was now following him as the other smaller dog Biscuit stayed behind just in case. So for the last hour he had been following the human who was now sneaking out of the village towards the forest. The man was named Guro. He had been part of one of the crime groups that had been swallowed up by Kane when he took over all of Gato's old territory. Well, no matter for him, old boss or new, as long as he got paid. Although he didn't like going into that village, it held a nasty rumor among the organization that said the place was a curse on them all. It was the reason why they had never tried to go back there. After what happened with Gato and those that the villagers hadn't caught while escaping, no one went there anymore. He really wished he wasn't sent to that place, and to make things worse, the ninja team that had come before seemed to be back again. Guro didn't take this as a good sign. At any rate, he would report back to those new ninja that the boss hired. They were supposed to be around this area somewhere, but damn if he could find them. Then again, these were ninja after all. Where the hell are they? Guro asked himself, feeling a bit nervous. He felt like someone had been watching him, but then again he always was paranoid. I hope you're talking about us, a voice came from behind him. Guro turned around and was surprised to see 5 members in brown cloaks. He was sure they hadn't been there before, but he later realized that he shouldn't be too surprised. A large male stepped forward who seemed to be the leader of this group. They carried no symbol of what village they were from, a telltale sign that they were renegades or outlaws. No surprise there. After all, the ninja that Gato had hired had been the same. It was common practice for criminals to hire outlaw ninja, as those ninja worked cheaper and for anyone to earn a living and to keep one step ahead of hunter ninja. I take it you have a report. It was more a statement than anything by the large man. This full bulk was hidden by the cloak and hood, but it only seemed to make the man even more intimidating. Why, yes, it seems that the village hired that same team as last time. I heard the rumors that they had a new member, but I didn't see who it was. But they're all in the village at the moment, it would seem. Guro said. Where you followed? Came the voice of a slim one with long silver hair but with the sides totally shaved. The man had a wild look in his eyes as he looked at Guro, almost like he was prey. Oh, of course, even I would have noticed a person following me. Guro said in his defense. He checked behind him all the time, even a ninja he should have seen at least one sign. Then how do you explain that? The slim one said as he threw out his arm. Several large discs flew out. As they went a certain distance, 4 sharp blades extended from them. They went into a bush as a yelp was heard and something that left a puff of smoke. Jin, what was that all about? The large leader asked. There was an animal that had been following him, a white dog of some kind. At first I thought it was a wild one, but it acted with a lot more intelligence. It had been watching us the entire time, and I'm pretty sure it was listening. The one named Jin explained to him as his sharp gray eyes looked at Guro. You let yourself be tracked back here. I never thought to look for an animal, but you killed it, didn't you? Guro felt more fear than ever at the moment. He swore that he hadn't been followed and it was proven a lie, plus there was no telling what would happen. Also that Jin guy was seriously creeping him out. Those gray eyes were cold like a killer. Yes, how about it? A female of the group spoke up. Jin sighed. Turns out it was a summons. I heard the sound and saw a bit of smoke. That means it returned safely back to its home before being killed. Now the master who summoned it will call it back and find out where our friend here went. Plus, since it was a dog, it's most likely had the man's scent now. So he's useless then. A slightly muffled voice was heard. This one had bandages all over the face with the exception of the eyes. Not entirely. There is still one thing we could use him for. Jin, it's time for you to make some traps and to bait them. The leader told him. Traps? Guro asked, looking at them as the female of the group turned to face him. Jin is an expert at trap making. She explained to him. So what's the bait? Guro asked, sweating. It was then he noticed how silent things were and how they were all looking at him. He knew what the bait was now, so he did the only thing he could think of. He tried to run. He got about a meter before his world went dark as a pain hit him in the back of his neck. Chapter 24. The Trap. When his dogs reported in, Kakashi took notice of the missing member of the team. After he sent one back to check to see if the missing member returned to their home, both dogs came back. Apparently Biscuit had followed a human and who came in contact with a ninja team. Unfortunately, he couldn't say anything more as he had nearly been killed and had transported back to their home before being fatally killed. Kakashi, after being showed the path the man took, got the scent and the trail. Now he knew where the man went and the direction. The only problem was that the enemy force was already aware that they were on to them. So this led to 2 possibilities. The enemy would attack in a preemptive strike or lay a trap for them. There were at least 5 of them, but he wanted to take them on, one at a time. There was no way to tell their levels of skill, what they could do, and many other unknowns. Waiting around for an attack was out of the question. The civilians would get caught in the fighting and could be used as hostages. Plus, urban fighting was always tricky, even if you knew the layout of the city. There were too many places to hide and too many unknowns that can change. He would have to have them take the fight to them, take down their numbers, forcing the others to withdraw. Then track them to their hideout, and then they could plan for that part of the mission when they reached that point. So he gathered up his team and laid out the attack plan. They would go in a wide spiral pattern around the last known area that the spy had been seen. This way they wouldn't go straight into the obvious trap that would be set. Also, it would allow them to notice anything on their way as they slowly made their way to the center. If the enemy force was spread out, Then they would attack and overwhelm one member and take them out fast. That would give them the numbers advantage early on into the fight. So now Team 7 was traveling the treetops of the forest. They were in a 5-man diamond formation at the moment. Kakashi was in the lead as his senses were the sharpest and he had done this maneuver plenty of times on missions. He could lead them in the correct pattern without going too close or far from the path. The 3 behind him were Naruto and Temari on the sides with Sakura in the middle. Since Naruto and Temari were the powerful ones, they were to protect their flanks with Sakura as backup for whoever needed it. Sasuke was last as he was to protect their rear, and with the Sharingan he could keep a better eye out than the others. Although this was the safest way to reach the target, it was also the longest and the more boring. At least Naruto threw that. He wanted to charge in, but of course he had been shot down with that idea by both Sakura and Temari. He sighed, as he kept an eye out for trouble. Kakashi so far had led them into the largest circle of the pattern and moved a bit closer. They had made about a half circle when he pulled his hand up flat in the air. The team quickly gathered behind a large rock that Kakashi had stopped behind. He slowly slid his head around it to take a look. He had seen something in the distance and now he wanted to make sure. In the distance he saw a figure hunched down looking towards the area where the man his dog had tracked had last been seen. Seems like they're watching the area, Kakashi thought as he scanned the area. Looks like only him, but either they're spread out evenly in S circle or they're in small groups. Can't see the other one if they're in partners, but I can't see everywhere. They could also be behind the tree somewhere out of my line of sight. Kakashi figured that this was the best way to take out 1 or even 2 members of the enemy force from the start. The noise would draw attention towards them, so if things went well he would pull them back and attack the enemy when they rushed in. He gave a few signals with his hands. This was something all ninja learned while in the academy, as it was basic for survival in the field. Kakashi would attack from this position with Sakura and Sasuke, while Naruto and Temari encircled them so they could attack from the rear. This way the enemy would be caught between them, as they needed to get this over with quickly as possible. The teams split off as they moved silently to attack. Naruto was eager for a fight as ever. He couldn't believe that someone was going to harm Inari's village again. That village had started to come back and someone wanted to ruin it all. For Naruto this was a bit more personal for him, but he couldn't wait to kick all the asses of all these guys. Plus this was also the first real mission with Temari on the team. With her on the team he knew they would be awesome. Although he hadn't noticed a thin wire set up on the branch where he had just stepped on until it was too late. Wah! Naruto looked down, feeling something catch his leg, and noticed the thin wire. Temari saw it as well as his eyes widened. Time seemed to slow down as she grabbed his jacket and pulled him down with her as they both started to fall off the tree tops. She made it just in time as several kunai attacked to the trigger wire hit the trunk, just missing them. But it turned out it was a good idea for Temari to pull him out of the tree, as the kunai had explosive tags on them. They exploded, sending pieces of wood out over the area. Temari could feel a sting of a few cuts on an arm, but she had bigger issues with the ground coming up fast. Naruto wasn't sure what was going on at first, that is until the explosion happened. He quickly formed as many clones as he could. They grabbed both the real Naruto and Temari, and when they were all about to hit the ground, the clones threw them up as they slammed into the ground. The clones turned into smoke as they hit, but Temari and Naruto managed to get onto a low-hanging branch. But by then, the entire stealth part of the plan was no longer an issue. The enemy in the tree heard all the noise. Kakashi had hoped they could pull this off, but no battle plan survived first contact and you couldn't predict everything. His team rushed forward to try and surprise the man, but when Kakashi's foot hit the branch he had just stepped on, something was off. The branch gave way as it broke. He managed to see that part of the branch had actually been cut through, making it really weak. He tumbled forward as he was unbalanced and tried to right himself. He managed to flip himself a bit forward with his momentum, and it was a good thing he had. When he landed, his heels weren't on solid ground. He nearly lost his balance again as the ground he had landed on wasn't totally solid. He threw himself forward as he looked back at the ground behind him. The branch had fallen through the grass as he realized that there was a hole under the ground. The branch had been cut so a person would fall into a tiger trap, and if he was a betting man he would bet there were spikes under that false grass top. Now things were starting to make sense as to why he didn't see anyone else. They had the unfortunately luck to run into a trap user. He hated fighting trap users when they had time to prepare. You never know the kinds of things they would come up with. He looked up to see their prey was already gone. This was bad. There was no telling what else was here, and that explosion would alert the rest of the enemy force to their location. They had to work fast now. They could be overwhelmed if they dragged this out. He shouted out the warning of the traps to his team in case they didn't understand the situation. He had to gather up the team. He saw Sasuke and Sakura not far away and told them to follow him. He had to get to Temari and Naruto to make sure that they hadn't been harmed by the explosion. He had only gotten a few meters when he suddenly jumped back, a glint of light off metal, his only warning, as a sword came at his blind side. Kakashi got a kunai out in time to stop apparently a second sword. The man before him wasn't the target he had been looking for. The man was slimmer build with the same dusty cloak but with a bandana on his head. He was also fighting with two ninjutsu-type swords. Unlike a katana, these blades were a bit shorter and great for slashing and quick movements. The man's face grinned as Kakashi took notice of a few scars on the face, little ones but still noticeable. "Oh, I know that face," the sword wielder smirked. "The famous Kakashi Hatake, eh? Always did want to fight someone of your caliber." "Sorry, but I don't know yours," Kakashi said as they traded blows with their weapons. He was a bit hard-pressed to match up with the blades. The man was obviously skilled in sword play, a specialist in that field. That much was obvious to him. Although he couldn't see any symbol on him for what village he was from, so they were rogues then. "The name is Natsu, but sorry to say that's all I'll give you," the man now known as Natsu told Kakashi. "Yes, well, I need to finish this to help my team out. My friend Jin will deal with your kids, besides you should be more worried about yourself," Natsu said as the attacks increased in speed. Kakashi barely had time to pull out another kunai to his free hand to help with the deflecting of the blades. Even with the Sharingan helping him, the man's abilities were impressive. Kakashi was thought to how he wished he had fixed his father's blade. That weapon would have been perfect to have in a fight like this. But there were a lot of issues he had with the blade, mainly what memories it held the day it broke. For Sasuke and Sakura things weren't getting much better as they had to cross over a field of booby traps. However, they did manage to get closer to Kakashi as he was battling Natsu the swordsman. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura called out to him. "I'm fine. Go check on Naruto and Temari," Kakashi ordered as he was deep in his fight. The two genins didn't need to be told twice as they left to check on their two teammates. Temari groaned as felt her arm. She saw the cuts into the sleeve of her white battle dress and saw a little blood, but nothing too bad. Even though when she moved her arm to experiment, she could feel a slight pang of pain when the arm moved a certain way. Most likely she had a couple of slivers of wood in her arm. She would have to get that looked at when they could before it got infected. "Temari-chan, are you okay?" Naruto asked her. He could see her wince in pain when she moved her arm. He felt guilty. He had been the one to trigger the trap and she nearly got killed saving him from it. Although he had saved them from the fall, she looked hurt and he had promised himself to take care of her. "Just a little banged up," she told him to put him at ease. She could see the worry in his eyes. They were always the most emotional part of his face, and she knew enough that she could tell his mood just by looking into those blue eyes of his. He needed to get his head together too. She couldn't let him get distracted in a moment like this. Then she heard the sound of fighting and she could make out Kakashi fighting someone else in the small open area in the forest. "Damn, we need to hurry, Naruto-kun. Where did the other one go?" Temari looked around for their first target, but he wasn't in the trees anymore. Naruto looked around as well as he noticed the same thing as her. He mentally cursed himself. He couldn't believe that he triggered that trap and nearly got himself and Temari killed. People always kept telling him not to jump into things headfirst, but he was just impulsive. He couldn't help it. But he would think later. Right now their enemy had just disappeared. A loud commotion was heard where the others were and he guessed they had run into some trouble as well. A loud whistling sound was their first and only warning as they dodged out of the way of a dozen Senbon needles hitting where they had been. Temari winced when she grabbed her battle fan. Her shoulder was swelling up and it was making it hard to use it. She had to use both hands to really use the massive weapon. She could use the smaller battle fans that Naruto gave her, but they weren't as powerful. She took a step and felt something in the ground give way with a click sound. Damn it! She cursed as she jumped out of the way of yet another trap. This one was a log with stakes put on it that slammed into where she had been and embedding itself into the trunk of a nearby tree. She was seriously getting pissed off at this guy. Naruto wasn't doing any better. He was good at setting traps, but he was never very good at avoiding them. Well, for not setting them off, he did have an unnatural ability to survive traps, and he was thankful for that now. He saw Temari in trouble and tried to get closer to her. They needed each other to beat this guy, and he could tell he was trying to separate them. He heard someone coming up behind him, and so he quickly performed a substitution with a log nearby when several kunai tried to embed into his back. Naruto reappeared nearby, and now he could see the guy that had been attacking them. He looked kind of skinny with white hair, and the guy was grinning like a maniac, which was kind of unsettling. Well, you must live a charmed life, boy. Jin snickered at him. Now many have lived that long while I've placed my traps around the area. But that won't matter too much. It's not like a couple of kids can take me out. Oh yeah, we're not just kids, we're Konoha ninja, and we're going to kick your asses for trying to harm this village. Naruto brazenly declared to the other man. Hey, you're full of confidence, aren't you? Jin laughed a bit. Yeah, and you're going to see why. Naruto yelled out as he created a clone while running. He had one hand held out to the clone as they formed the Rasengan together. The clone then jumped onto the shoulders of the original as he launched himself off at the other ninja. Jin threw out several small bombs that exploded, taking out the clone and leaving smoke in the way. Jin jumped back, but Naruto had taken advantage of the smoke as well. He altered his course and jumped through the smoke. The Rasengan slammed into the body of the ninja. Naruto grinned as he thought he caught the guy, but something was wrong. The Rasengan had worked, but the guy wasn't reacting. Gotcha, Jin said as he seemed to balloon up. Naruto was caught in an explosion. The real Jin stepped out from behind a tree chuckling. Although he specialized in traps, he was also good at earth jutsu. That was a special earth clone of his that he kept on hand for just like moments like this. It held several explosives inside of it, so when it was damaged, the earth clone would set it off. All too easy. Jin grinned, although that was an impressive attack the boy had, he admitted to himself. He certainly didn't want to get caught by it. Now it was time for the girl. He hadn't gotten a good look at her as he was more focused on the boy, but how much trouble could a girl genin be? He looked across the field to see the blonde-haired girl, but he froze when he saw her fan. He knew that style of fighting. She was a long-range wind user, not a good opponent to fight when he was this far from her. Temari had managed to see what had happened to Naruto and gritted her teeth. She didn't want to think how hurt Naruto might be. She was only focused on the man that had hurt her husband. She put all her strength into her holding her fan and focusing her chakra, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. She swung her fan fully exposed as she used as powerful a wind blast as she could, but the man seemed to be prepared. Most would try their own attack not knowing the full power of a wind user like her, but this man must have fought someone like her to know most attacked would just be blown back. She cursed as the man jumped out of the range of her wind blast. Normally that wouldn't be a problem, but with her shoulder she wasn't sure how many times she could use that. The pain that had flared up was very distracting for her focus. Jin saw that the girl was favoring one of her arms. In that case he had a plan already set out. He would tire her out a bit more, and then when she couldn't hold it any longer he would attack. Maybe even move her to one of the traps that was a few meters to her left. He was about to try and move himself to get into a better position when suddenly half a dozen pairs of hands grabbed onto him from behind. What the hell? Jin shouted, trying to see who it was, and saw many copies of the genin he thought he had just killed. The clones were looking slightly singed looking, but they grinned as they held him into place. Welcome to our trap, one of the clones said to him. Temari was surprised to see Naruto's clones. That meant that the real Naruto was still alive and well. She heard motion to her right and saw Naruto coming towards her. He had looked better, but he seemed okay. Naruto, what happened? He grinned at her. The Rasengan took most of the explosion and flew me back into some bushes. She was momentarily surprised, but then she tried not to laugh. Naruto, she had learned, had the most bizarre luck in life. Things that would normally kill another, he seemed to find a way out of. She looked back to her target now that he couldn't move and grinned herself, but this was more predatory. Now the ninja wouldn't be able to dodge her next attack. She tried to lift her fan, but Winston nearly dropped it, but Naruto had managed to help her catch it before it fell. "I'll help," Naruto told her in a serious tone. She saw the look in his eyes. This was the same look she had seen back in his fight with Gaara. They were the eyes of a ninja that would never lose, a look that made her get a shiver down her spine, but this was a more pleasant sensation. She nodded her head as they held her fan together. "Give me the chakra and I'll use it," Temari told him, but only a bit. She was glad she remembered to add that last part. She had no idea just how much chakra she could mold herself, but the amount that Naruto could use would be too much. She felt the rush of chakra filling her fan from him. All those months of training him in wind chakra had been very beneficial for this moment. When she used her fan, the wind was like feeling the breeze of a windstorm. With Naruto, it felt like she was feeling the winds of a hurricane. It was so primal and focuses that it took her by surprise. She had never felt anything like this in her life. The wind was nearly uncontrollable as it came from her fan. She had never used such a wind attack in her life. The ground itself was tearing itself out of the ground. Rocks were being lifted and sent flying. Trees were bending as bark was ripped from their trunks. The ninja never stood a chance. His screams were drowned out by the wind as he was flung back into a tree. Other trees broke down around him as he was buried in tree, earth, rock and anything else. By the end of it there wouldn't have been much left of the man, and if he had survived he wouldn't live for long under all of that. Naruto and Temari were relieved when their enemy went down. That meant that they had taken out one of the enemy ninja force, making this fight a bit easier for their side. Temari looked to her husband and smiled. They made a good team. Maybe when they got back she would look into them training in a few combo moves. With his chakra supply and his affinity the same as hers, they could come up with some devastating wind attacks. But she never got any further in her thoughts as a huge gust of wind hit them now, and this wasn't from either of them. Temari hit the trunk of the tree. Her head snapped back, hitting the hard wood, making her see stars. Naruto wasn't so lucky as he was blown off his feet and hit a rock. He groaned as he slowly got to his feet. He swore he heard a female voice call out something before another windstorm came up. This one, however, seemed to cut the tops of the trees above him. Naruto looked up in surprise as several large logs of trees fell where he was standing. The female figure that had done this looked on as the dust cleared. She nodded her head as she turned back to Temari. Said girl was slowly trying to get her vision to steady. She saw a female figure with a cloak walking towards her. She held a fan much like her own. She couldn't tell much else as the fan had been closed. "I never thought we'd meet here, Temari-chan," the female spoke, and it was eerily familiar to Temari. "Who?" She tried to speak as she tried to get back up on her feet. The woman hit Temari in the stomach with the huge fan, making the other girl fall to her knees coughing. "I'm hurt. It's only been 3 years and you've forgotten me already." The woman pulled back the hood and Temari's face went pale as she could now see clearly enough the face that had been hidden. It was a woman not much older than her, with long flowing brown hair and smooth features. Temari couldn't believe it. She never expected to see this face again. Senpai. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlists. Hope you would like them too.